Well, hello. So a lot of people have been asking if I would do a seed haul video, and this seed haul is not from Baker Creek like I usually do. This one is from Everwilde. So I thought, go ahead and I will do a seed haul with Everwilde. It's one of my favorite companies. I also love Baker Creek, you know I do. One thing I do really like about Everwilde is the Mylar bags. I love them. And especially since I have so many seeds that I'm at the point where I want to make sure that whatever seeds I buy now are going to last a while. And the Mylar, I believe, is going to make them last a good deal longer. So let's go ahead and see what I got. And this little container I have them in here now is what they use to collect like strawberries out in the field. And somebody gave them a bunch of them to me for free. I don't use them for gathering strawberries. I use them for all sorts of things in the garden. But let's go ahead and start rummaging through this and see what I've got on this beautiful seed haul. And they are like golden tickets. Like, I've got the golden ticket. Let's go ahead and see what I've got. First of all, I do want to kind of show you, I love, maybe it's the teacher in me, but I love clips. And they help things from slipping and sliding. So one thing that is a downside of the Mylar is that it's slippery. Not as slippery as just regular plastic stuff, but I like to use clips so that I can find things easily. But let's go ahead and look at this. This is the Buttercrop winter squash. Isn't that beautiful? It almost looks like a watermelon with the stripes. But that is a winter squash, and that's one of the nice things I like about winter squash is that they usually, are, and I'm looking for good keepers. So let's take a look at this. It says 100 days, and you plant them outside late spring, full sun, obviously. So all of your squash, you're going to want full sun for your squashes, and anything that's producing a really big crop is going to be full sun. Prove me wrong. Comment below if you don't think I'm right about that. So about this variety, produces blocky dark green fruits that weigh from 3 to 5 pounds. The flesh is deep orange in color and fiberless. That means it's not stringy. It's dry and sweet. Its taste is much like that of a sweet potato. That's why I got this, is because, I've been trying to grow sweet potatoes here in Zone 8, Washington State, Pacific Northwest, for many years. And, you can eat the greens of sweet potatoes. Not potatoes, sweet potatoes. But whenever I've grown sweet potatoes, all I get are scraggly little skinny sweet potatoes that are like the size of an individual like sweet potato fry. Like, I'm not kidding. And I've eaten them. They're yummy, believe me. And they have more skin, which usually sweet potatoes, the skin is the most nutritious part. So, it's fine if you want to grow individualized sweet potato fries. Go ahead and grow your sweet potatoes in Washington. But I was like, you know what? I love the taste of sweet potatoes, and Buttercrop winter squash, Cucurbita Maxima. Oh, by the way, if you're growing different kinds of squash, if you look at the genus and species, it's going to say Cucurbita for the squash, and then it'll say Maxima or something else as the like Pepo, or I'm spacing out, but there's like 3 or 4 main varieties of squash, and they might say totally different common names. But if you're looking at the species, if you have the same species of squash, they're going to interbreed. But if you have just one of each of the species, they should not. So you could do 3, possibly 4 different types of squash and seed save from all of them if you have them from the 4 different species. The 2 main species that you're probably familiar with is Maxima for winter squashes and Pepo for summer squash. If you can think of an example of a Pepo, Cucurbita Pepo, comment below what are the summer squashes that you're familiar with growing, and what are the familiar Maxima or winter squashes that you are familiar with growing. There are a couple others. I'll pause for a second. If you want to guess what those other scientific names are, pop a comment in the space below, and you can go ahead and pause while you make that guess. Another variety, another species is Moschata. So Cucurbita, Moschata, and Maxima and Pepo should not cross-pollinate. If you've ever seen them cross-pollinate, please tell me what types of pumpkins or squash that you had that did cross. I have been doing a lot of research that if you had different species of squash, they shouldn't be crossing. You can have different varieties within that same genus if they're in the same species as well, but if they're in a different species, they're not supposed to cross, and if they do cross, then they have been misclassified, because that's how things are scientifically classified. Is if it's a species, it means that if you have different specimen for within that species, they can have fertile offspring. But if they can cross and they don't have fertile offspring, then it's maybe the same genus but not the same species. And if they don't cross at all, then you're not going to have any of that. So the Cucurbita Maxima should not be crossing with the Pepo or the Moschata. So I would be safe growing this and at least 2 other kinds of pumpkins or squash. So squash, I always find it interesting because a lot of people will buy like cucumber and squash plants from the garden centers, and they'll pay a couple dollars for a plant. It doesn't make any sense because usually those plants do not do very well. I will tell you my hack, which is if you are starting a plant from seed in a pot and you're growing squash or cucumber or melon, if you line the pot with it could be a paper towel, but it really works best with a coffee filter. Then when you go to transplant it, you can grab the coffee filter, put it in the ground, and then just like lay the coffee filter down and put soil around it. Don't disturb the roots, okay? And you also don't want your squash generally in a container for more than 3 or 4 weeks. That's plenty of time to get a jump start on the season, and you want them in the ground after the last possible frost. If you're not sure, you might want to do a little bit of protection. Put an empty milk jug on top of your plant at nighttime, not during the day, just at nighttime is fine. And then maybe do some mulching. So they always recommend like planting extra seeds and then clipping off the ones that are not good or not as good. Usually what happens to me is if I plant 3 or 4 seeds, whatever pops up, usually they're all good. So I just naturally give each plant its space, and I do transplant seeds. I do transplant seedlings, but like I said, I do it in my special method, which is lining that like 4 or 5 inch pot with a coffee filter, and then I just take the whole coffee filter and I put it into the ground with the plant. And when I put that coffee filter down, I put soil on top of it. I don't keep it up around it like it's a pot anymore. I lay it down flat and put soil on top of it. I've also even done hole punches in the coffee filter before I plant it. You can even do that before. You can double line it with like 2 coffee filters, both of them with hole punches. And then when you lay one down, you can remove the outside one, and then any roots can get through the holes that were in the previous one, and it will break down faster because of the holes. So that's just something to think about. You can notice that this seed packet has all of the required legal information that a packet's supposed to have. And a lot of companies don't include that information. It tells you when they tested it, the germination rate, purity, and sell-by date. It also tells you the lot number, and all this other extra information, all this planting information, that's not actually legally required. But this information down here is. So if you're buying from a company that doesn't have that information, you might think about maybe switching to Everwilde or another company that has all the required info. So the species Cucurbita Argyrosperma is another species that has like Cushaw, and you would have to manually hand pollinate that species with Maxima. And most likely what will happen is that even if a fruit does, a squash does start to form, it will generally basically abort itself. So, and it's because they have a different evolutionary history, whereas like the Moschata and the Argyrosperma are more closely related. You might even say that I don't know if scientists could probably argue that they might be the same species, or that they're close enough to produce fertile offspring without a lot of interference. So to cross-pollinate this species within this genus of Cucurbita, you'd actually have to get a little complicated, and that's not what the home gardeners usually do. So if you are growing Maxima, Moschata, and Pepo, it's very unlikely that you're going to have them crossing. And so that's pretty safe. But if you have more than one species, you could have some hybrids starting to develop, and you might end up with something kind of wonky. So I like the idea of growing 3 types of squash, maximum, get it, maxima, per season. You can alternate. Maybe if you have like other ones you want to grow, you could grow them and try to time the flowering and fruiting so that they're not flowering at the same time. Or if you notice that there are female flowers versus male flowers at certain times, you can hand pollinate if you want to have more than one of the same species growing at the same time. But there's always a chance that you're going to miss a flower or something like that. So just keep that in mind if you are seed saving. So squash, I always find it interesting because a lot of people will buy like cucumber and squash plants from the garden centers, and they'll pay a couple dollars for a plant. It doesn't make any sense because usually those plants do not do very well. I will tell you my hack, which is if you are starting a plant from seed in a pot and you're growing squash or cucumber or melon, if you line the pot with it could be a paper towel, but it really works best with a coffee filter. Then when you go to transplant it, you can grab the coffee filter, put it in the ground, and then just like lay the coffee filter down and put soil around it. Don't disturb the roots, okay? And you also don't want your squash generally in a container for more than 3 or 4 weeks. That's plenty of time to get a jump start on the season, and you want them in the ground after the last possible frost. If you're not sure, you might want to do a little bit of protection. Put an empty milk jug on top of your plant at nighttime, not during the day, just at nighttime is fine. And then maybe do some mulching. So they always recommend like planting extra seeds and then clipping off the ones that are not good or not as good. Usually what happens to me is if I plant 3 or 4 seeds, whatever pops up, usually they're all good. So I just naturally give each plant its space, and I do transplant seeds. I do transplant seedlings, but like I said, I do it in my special method, which is lining that like 4 or 5 inch pot with a coffee filter, and then I just take the whole coffee filter and I put it into the ground with the plant. And when I put that coffee filter down, I put soil on top of it. I don't keep it up around it like it's a pot anymore. I lay it down flat and put soil on top of it. I've also even done hole punches in the coffee filter before I plant it. You can even do that before. You can double line it with like 2 coffee filters, both of them with hole punches. And then when you lay one down, you can remove the outside one, and then any roots can get through the holes that were in the previous one, and it will break down faster because of the holes. So that's just something to think about. You can notice that this seed packet has all of the required legal information that a packet's supposed to have. And a lot of companies don't include that information. It tells you when they tested it, the germination rate, purity, and sell by date. It also tells you the lot number. And all this other extra information, all this planting information, that's not actually legally required. But this information down here is. So if you're buying from a company that doesn't have that information, you might think about maybe switching to Everwilde or another company that has all the required info. This package here is lemon basil. And, you know, even if you feel like it's too late to grow basil at a certain point, it's not. Plant it in a container. And if it gets too late in the season, because basil likes warmth, you can always bring it inside or put it into a protected area. And you don't have to wait for it to be a certain size to start eating it. You could eat them as sprouts even. So with herbs, if you want a good harvest and you're kind of late, plant extra. So this is 85 days. Most basils are annuals. There are some perennial versions, but they are not as culinary. They are more medicinal. So you might look into things like Tulsi, things like that, and see about how you might like those. But lemon basil sounds wonderful, and so I thought this would be great to grow. You can start them inside. You don't have to. Like I said, though, the opposite side is true. If you start them later, you can just plant them in a container and then bring them in instead of starting them early and bringing them out. Get what I'm saying? Or you could do both. Start them early, bring them out, and then bring them back in again. Basils do bolt. And there are different versions that bolt faster than others. But if something bolts, you know what that means? It means free seeds. And then you have seeds to grow more plants. So that one plant that bolted for you, don't call it a waste. It's not a loss. You are going to grow that and you're going to get a lot more plants out of it. And yes, you can eat basil as a sprout. So don't stress out about that. Definitely happy with this package. And this is a lot of seeds. This is a huge oversized packet. But I love that they always have like a Bible verse. God has made everything beautiful in his time. Ecclesiastes 3:11. And this is obviously GMO free. I forget how many. It's 1/4 of a pound. And if you don't know this, lemon basil seeds are tiny. So this is a lot of plants. 1/4 of a pound. I'm glad I'm doing a seed haul today because I'm stuck with my leg up in a chair after having surgery that did not go so well, and I ripped through my wound by trying to be too productive. So, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta rest, people. Know when to be busy and productive and know when to give yourself a break. So I actually was a little bit too active going back to work and being on my feet all day, and my wound reopened and got infected, and I was in the hospital for almost a week. 7 days and 6 nights, and I don't even want to know what that bill is going to be. So it sure would help if my channel was monetized. Help offset some of the downside of being a single parent now. Just got my divorce finalized in April, and having medical bills. So that's just amazing. When it rains, it pours. But then if it rains, then that just means it's another day you don't have to water and you get free water, right? So Dwarf Columbine. I love Columbine. They are beautiful. And I only have a few. I actually got from, I got a couple of them from a church yard sale. And then I got a couple from a free plant swap where I gave away some plants and seeds, and then I got a couple Columbine plants for free. And then I fell in love with them, and I just can't get enough. So because I have some small spaces to fill, I thought some Dwarf Columbine would fit in that very nicely. And Columbine are very feminine. They're just very dainty. They kind of bow their heads. They're just really pretty. These are perennials, which is nice because you do the work of planting them, but you don't have to do the work of planting them every year. And it will be a nice little surprise when you kind of forget over time what you have where, and then they pop up later and you're like, oh, aren't you pretty? So this is Dwarf Columbine. I'm not sure how to say the genus name. Aquilegia vulgaris. Okay, so it's not vulgaris. It says fall sow or 8 weeks cold and wet. So you know what? Let's go for easy. Let's go ahead and just grow them in the fall. So plant them. I would probably plant them around Halloween or Thanksgiving, just because, well, Thanksgiving you have some extra time. Halloween, I'm not so sure. You want to fall sow them, though. They like to be cold and wet for stratification. So I love the nodding blossoms. Very lovely. And there should be a mix of different colors in this packet. This is a lot of seeds. By the way, like I said with the basil seeds, these are very tiny. Columbine are tiny seeds. So for an ounce of seeds, you're getting a ton. The germination rate on this is higher. It's 86% and 99.95% purity. What purity means, there's not very much chaff. There's less than 1% chaff, which is like the bits of the flowers and stuff like that. So most of the contents in here, it's almost all seeds. And these are perennials. And then they'll go to seed, right? So I'm loving this. Once I see them flowering, I think I will try to divide the light pink from the fuchsia, from the purple, and to see if I can kind of isolate which ones are different colors, just because I'm always interested in what can I do. What can I do? Can I separate them? Can I make them a certain quality? So I'm always trying to play my hand with that. This squash here is amazing. What I've read about this one, I researched it quite a bit. This one is supposed to be absolutely delicious, and it's called Thelma Saunders Winter Squash. And you can probably recognize the shape of it. This is a Pepo, so it's Cucurbita Pepo. The other one I showed you was a Maxima. So they should not cross-pollinate unless you really tried. And then you would get infertile offspring, so it wouldn't be an issue with seed saving. So we have sow outside, late spring. I think I might be a little too late for that, but let's see. Okay, I'm trying to think of my healing time. If I did all of July, August, September, you know what? I probably could get a harvest if I start these with the method I said I do, which is I use a coffee filter in a like a 3, 4, or 5 inch pot, and I plant one per pot with the coffee filter. If I use a little bit of heat, a little heat mat, I could get these started faster and give them a jump start, and then I could probably get one small harvest in time. So this is a winter squash, and it doesn't mean you plant them in winter. It means that's when you harvest them, because they generally need more days. Like, for instance, if you're planting a zucchini or a patty pan, you're gonna have a harvest faster, and you eat them as in the immature stage where those seeds are not actually viable yet. These you actually harvest when the seeds are viable. So 88 days isn't to the harvest only, it's also to maturity. Okay, so looking here, and you also have to calculate how many days it takes to sprout. So if it takes 3 to 5 days, you add the 3 to 5 days to the 88 days. So this says, this family heirloom from Missouri is characterized by its delicate, wonderful taste, and the golden yellow flesh stays firm after being cooked. With a tender, tan skin and rigid acorn shape, it can grow up to 6 feet long in about 90 days and keeps well into the winter. So to direct sow, plant seeds when the soil reaches 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Plant a 1 inch deep, 3 to 4 feet apart, and thin to 8 feet to 10 feet apart. To start indoors, plant in peat pots, because that's, again, the reason why they're saying peat pots is because they don't transplant well. Squash and melons don't transplant well. So the peat pots can break down. Now, I've tried peat pots before, and they don't break down fast enough for me. So I would just use, you could even use like a coffee filter with a little bit of cocoa coir in the bottom and around the edges. And that way, I don't know, like I think maybe transplanting it might be even a little bit easier, so that you don't disturb the roots. So plant 2 seeds per pot. and then clip out the weaker one. I can't do it. I just can't do it. So I just plant one, and if it doesn't sprout, then I just plant another one later. Another one. So harden them off, which basically means don't shock them by bringing them from inside to outside and just leaving them. I basically would plant them inside, and then I'd bring them outside during the daytime, and at nighttime bring them back in at nighttime for a couple days before I eventually leave them outside all the time. And if it's going to drop it below 35 degrees, you want to protect them. And you never want to really water the leaves of squash. And they like to have water, but if you can water from the bottom, you want to do that as much as possible, basically. So the more water splashing on the leaves, especially if it's splashing on soil and then on the leaves, that can cause diseases. So I got another kind of columbine. It's the McKana Giants, and these are really lovely. It doesn't say that you can plant them really in the shade. It says part sun. One thing I noticed is that I do have some columbine that it's in dappled light. I would even say that it's in shade, and they're still blooming. Now, I don't know, maybe I'd get more blooms if I had them in more sunny area, but I am getting flowers in the shade, so I'm really happy with that. Also, one thing that this packet notes is that as the columbine matures and gets bigger, you can over time divide the plant. So not only can you collect seeds, but you can divide it and get more plants that way. So there's more than one way to actually propagate your plants. This one's an award winner. So it was an award winner, and it became available in the 1950s. It's very pretty. These were more expensive than the other packet that I got. So this packet here, I'm pretty sure this one was a little bit cheaper. So that's an ounce. And then this one here, that one is 1/4 of an ounce. So I'm fairly certain that the reason why I got a smaller packet was because of the price. So you can see which one of those do you think is prettier. Comment below, do you like the Dwarf Columbine or the McKana Giants Columbine? I think they're both really pretty. I kind of like one more than the other. I won't tell you which one I like more than the other. I think one looks more old-fashioned and one looks more modern. If that's a thing. So here's my next packet. It's called Heal All. And it looks a lot like something that you might see in your garden or in your yard that grows as weeds. You might see things that are called, plants that are called henbit. And then there's also something called a dead nettle. They look very similar. So let's take a look here. It says Prunella vulgaris. There's that vulgar. Stop being so vulgar. Perennial. I wonder what vulgaris means. It must mean something similar, because we have a different genus, but we have a another the species sounds very similar to something else we talked about. It suggests that herbalists have appreciated this native plant's healing properties for centuries. It's a pretty common sight in the wild. Bees will love it. Pretty purple flowers, does not get very tall, easy to grow. Best planted outside in fall or early spring. So we have 2 windows then. So we already missed the first window, which is early spring, but we can plant it in the fall. Okay, this is something that's nice for me because with being temporarily disabled with my leg, I have a really bad, I had a tumor, a non-cancerous benign tumor removed, and then it's healed and then it split open, and so sadly I am stranded in a chair and using a knee, I almost want to say stroller, scooter. For a while I was using a walker and I was feeling decrepit. I'm 47 and in good health, and I love gardening, But right now I feel just really disappointed that I can't be outside my garden. So I am looking forward to some of these things that I can plant later. And yes, you are going to be waiting. You know, like when you plant something in the fall, you are going to see it growing in the spring. So, but that does save you a huge step of not having to cold stratify plants and seeds in your crisper drawer, in your refrigerator. So, prefer consistently moist soil and will benefit from watering in dry weather. It can spread vigorously. I do not mind that as a problem at all. And if you deadhead them, you're going to get more flowers. It attracts bees and butterflies. That sounds absolutely lovely. So, I mean, I have purple dead nettle and henbit. They both grow in my yard, and I sometimes struggle to tell them apart. I think they look very similar. I think most people would agree they look very similar. They're often confused. But henbit and dead nettle are in the same genus as one another. They're different species. Heal-all is in a different genus and species altogether. It's also called self-heal, and it's a perennial, whereas dead nettle and henbit are annuals. They might seem like perennials because you might find a cluster of them in the same spot every year, but they are basically reproducing and you're seeing their offspring. Whereas heal-all, you're going to see the same plants and offspring. So they are perennial. Now the flowers here, you can see look a little bit different, but I think all three of them, the tiny little purple flowers, the individual petals, they look a lot to me like tiny little orchids. So I love the look of them, and I think by planting perennials, I really like the idea of it. All three of them have medicinal uses. So this one just has the perk of it being a perennial. So this is going to be something that's healing because it's called heal-all and self-heal. So I've actually, back in the day, I thought self-heal and heal-all were two different plants. They are one and the same. They have Prunella vulgaris is the scientific name for heal-all. And since it's also the scientific name for self-heal, that means that those are two common names that mean the same thing. Full sun is going to be best. You're going to get more flowers. I would assume that you would probably do okay if you had dappled light, dappled shade. But the more sun you have, the better. Now, they do need to have some kind of wet, cold stratification. So you can either start them like in your refrigerator in a damp, sterile, like I like to use like a sterile medium, almost sterile, not exactly sterile, but you know what I mean. I'm not going to put earthworms and insects in my refrigerator, but you can use like damp, wet cocoa coir and put your seeds in there and in like a Tupperware container. I don't like to use the plastic baggie method because I see that it causes a lot of rot. So I like to have a container that's a couple inches tall. I put a little bit of cocoa coir that's damp, put the seeds in. I plant it as deep as it says, and then you put it in there because sometimes what you're going to see is sometimes it needs that cold stratification to break the dormancy, and actually sometimes it will start growing in your fridge. So I like to have that space so that when I notice that they're growing, they're not already starting to rot. So if you want a higher survival rate for the plants that you are cold stratifying and you're not constantly checking on them, I would definitely recommend getting, like, it doesn't have to be Ziploc or, Tupperware, but something that's a couple inches tall, and then a couple centimeters, maybe an inch of damp cocoa coir. Plant your seeds with a moist medium, put the lid on it, make sure that it's labeled, and maybe set a reminder on your calendar of how long you're supposed to leave it there, and check on it regularly. you don't want mold to occur. If you do get mold happening when you're cold stratifying something, what I usually do is I dip a toothpick or a small little stick in hydrogen peroxide, and I pick off any mold with that. And that way I'm not just moving mold spores from one place to another, but I pick them out using a little toothpick that I continuously dip into a little cap full of hydrogen peroxide. So that has been something that works for me, and you might try that if it helps you. Okay, so these do like to be watered, and you don't want to plant it where it's somewhere where it's really weedy. I'm not really prepared as I'm pulling these seeds out because I forgot about this order, and then somebody said, when will I put up another seed haul? Thought, you know what, I haven't put this up, so I didn't prepare. I'm just kind of going through these and kind of surprising myself. Very happily surprised. I bought these for myself a while ago. Common arrowhead, and I didn't pull them out because I'm hurt, so why tease myself? But it's kind of nice because I'm actually looking forward to some of these plants being something I can plant. It's not too late for me. By the time I heal, I should be able to plant them. Common arrowhead, and I love that they're mylar because that means that they're going to last even longer. One thing that's nice about these packets too is that they have zipper tops, so they are sealed at the top. You rip that off, and then they have an actual resealable top, so that actually really helps with the seeds not getting damaged. This is a common arrowhead, Sagittaria latifolia, perennial, so that's going to live many years. Fall sow, excellent, hallelujah. So another thing I can plant in this fall and not have to stress out about my healing time. So native to ponds, streams, marshes, this perennial is known by its arrowhead-shaped leaves and white three-petaled flowers. It's also known as duck potato. Isn't that funny? Duck potato. Because it grows tubers that the ducks like to eat. So, best if planted outside in fall or early spring. If cold is past, place seeds in moist sand for 8 weeks. So this needs 8 weeks of cold stratification. Sow seeds just below the soil at 75 degrees. Okay, so after you have cold stratify them. This one says to use moist sand. You can do that. Sand is less prone to molding than other mediums, but I've been very, very happy with cocoa coir. So if you have sand that's not salty, go ahead and try that. So you could use playground sand probably, I would imagine. And it will eventually spread by rhizomes and self-seeding. Common arrowhead. So why would I plant this other than it's very lovely? So a few things about common arrowhead. One of the reasons why I bought this is because I really like the story, the true story of Lewis and Clark's expedition. And actually Lewis and Clark ate the tubers, what they allude to here as it being food for ducks, like the duck potato. They actually ate that on their trip down by the Willamette River in during that time period. So I thought that was really interesting. I actually have quite a few seeds that I've ordered and I plant because of their expedition. Which one did I think was especially interesting? I'm kind of spacing, but I bought a big bag of seeds. What was it? Oh. Clarkia. So there is a flower called Clarkia I also have. But I bought that a while ago. I don't think I made a video about it. But Clarkia is named after Lewis and Clark. And there's a fancy version of it too. I just bought the common type. And when I get that growing, I will have to show you some pictures of it and stuff. But this is called common arrowhead. This plant can be confused with a toxic plant that's similar in appearance. So the arrowhead, the scientific name here The Sagittarius latifolia actually means wide leafed and then arrow shaped. So it's an arrow shaped wide leaf. And there is another plant that looks similar that's toxic. So you never want to eat the duck potato unless you know for sure that it is Sagittaria latifolia. And I would know that it is because I bought the plant, right? I bought the seeds, and I know that this is legitimately this kind of plant. Interesting, but I do not understand why. So, you know the movie, the movies, The Hunger Games. You know Katniss. So they said that her name came from this plant. I don't understand how. If you understand the connection, would you comment below? Because I've done some research on it and I don't see the connection. Because I don't see Katniss in the name here. Does it make sense? So this is called common arrowhead. Right? And yeah, I get the idea that she, used bows and arrows. But it's Sagittaria latifolia. I'm not sure where Katniss comes from. So if you understand the connection between Katniss in the Hunger Games and this plant, please pop a comment below. If you know any more about the plant, because, all I know is what I've researched. I haven't planted it yet. About this, the duck potato, I think it sounds really interesting. Now, I do have access to a 5-acre plot of land that's on a man-made lake that the community actually backfilled with water. So it's more like a little bit under 4 acres, but I still will own the underwater portion as well. But what I was thinking is planting it and then propagating it and then getting some of that growing on that property where it's wetland. And that way the ducks have food. But then also, if they miss some of it, then we do too. So I thought that would be interesting. And I think it's a very beautiful plant. You can't really see the leaves on here, but the leaves are really beautiful as well. The next seed packet, and it's really, you can't really tell. There's a lot of seeds in here. This is a full ounce of wild bergamot. Wild bergamot. And it looks like it looks like a clover is having a bad hair day. What do you think? That looks like a clover to me that's having a bad hair day. Or maybe it looks kind of like a pink bachelor button that's having a bad hair day. Anyway, whatever it is, it's having a bad hair day. And so looking here, it is a perennial. Love that. Monarda fistulosa. Sounds kind of like a disease, like fistula. Monarda. That also reminds me of like butterflies, right? So it says here that you should plant outside in the spring. So I probably should plant it next year in the spring, probably in April, May. This native wildflower is a cornerstone of a prairie mixes because it's a reliable bloomer and draws in pollinators of all stripes. It does have a minty aroma, but it is not the same bergamot used in Earl Grey tea. It is not. This perennial produces honey that is reddish in color. So if you raise honeybees, that will be interesting. So easy germination. Seeds need light to germinate. Sow seeds in spring on the soil surface, so you don't have to bury them. Whenever I plant something on the soil surface, I do like to tamp it down with my fingers so that it's in contact, or I will also do a little spritz of water so that I know that the seeds are actually like adhered to the soil, but not covering them. That means that they need light to germinate. So you should water young plants occasionally, but once they're mature, they're going to want well-drained soil. If they're overcrowded, they can get fungal diseases. That's true of a lot of plants, so you want to thin them out. When I thin plants, I basically transplant them. I cannot bring myself to actually killing plants. Just cannot do it. It can propagate by both self-seeding and rhizomes. So sexually and asexually reproduces. It attracts hummingbirds, yes sir, bees, and butterflies, yes. So deadheading doesn't kill a plant. Deadheading in this situation just means to remove the spent flowers. So what I would do is let all the bees and hummingbirds and everything go through. And once they start looking not so good, you just pick the flowers off and they will grow more flowers. And after 2 or 3 years, it's going to be big enough to actually divide. So that's when you're dividing them by rhizome. Okay, so I just had to do a little fact checking on myself because I was like, why did I buy so much? So usually if I buy a lot of something, it's either because, it's a perennial, it's really beautiful, and it's somehow useful. So I had to do a quick search, and because it said on here, it's not the same kind of the bergamot as for Earl Grey tea, but it is used in tea, but not as Earl Grey tea. That's a different kind of plant. So so do a little search on that. So the flowers and greenery they're both used apparently. So do your own research because this is a new plant to me. It's also called bee balm from what I searched. Fact check me. Let me know if you think that sounds right. But I think that's true. And I think I bought it under both common names. That's why you really want to look at the scientific names, you guys. Monarda, fistulosa. By the way, fistulosa talks about the tubular shaped flowers. And Monarda is related to the botanist who discovered it. So, when it says fistula, it's not saying fistula. It's fistulosa, which is the tubular shaped flowers. So if you look here, each of those petals, I can't zoom in. Each of the petals is kind of tubular, which kind of reminds me of seashell cosmos, but with a crazy hair day. So definitely take a look if you haven't seen seashell cosmos. And I just got those because they're really weird and pretty. I got them from the same company, this Everwilde company. So I really love them. And I will say the seeds are going to really add up and get expensive quickly. So with my seed company, I'm doing small, amounts of seeds, but I'm doing them super, super cheap because I'm at the point now where it's like it needs to be a really good deal. And I know that a lot of people are struggling to make ends meet, and I don't want people to not be able to garden. So like when I do my seed donations, I do seed donations to the library. I think I've donated about 1,000 packets to the library, almost as much to the food bank. I've got 600 seed packets to the food bank, and I've got at least another 400 ready to go. But by the time I do my donation, I'll probably have twice that. So I'm constantly giving my seeds away. I give them to the food bank and to the library and to a seed and plant swap group that I'm part of. And it's just because I really want to see my community and everybody having gardens. I also love wildlife. So if it's not something that's edible or useful to people, I try to find plants that are going to attract pollinators, either be native, which this plant is native to all U.S. states except for Florida, California, and Alaska. So it's native to all of the other continental United States. So, Hawaii is not continental. So it's not native to California, Florida, Alaska, or Hawaii, but it's native according to the map that they provide on this website. That's one of the lovely things I love about this company is that it shows a map of where the plants are from, and it will show whether it's been introduced there, if it's native or invasive. So it's just beautiful. I just love the information that they provide. Usually I get, even if I don't buy my seeds, let's say I get a seed packet from Baker Creek or migardener, I will usually go on Everwilde and I'll look that plant up and get more information. Why would I buy things from migardener if it's offered with Everwilde? I would buy it there because it's a smaller packet and it's cheaper. I would buy it from Everwilde because I would probably get a better deal if I'm buying in bulk. If I'm considering the fact that I'm going to be giving away seeds to friends, family, neighbors, people who are less fortunate, I'm getting a better deal per seed. Now I'm paying a lot more for it, and I am doing this at a loss. So to show you how I'm kind of using the clips, so like I'm starting to put together, like, you know, these are all going to be like things that are just flowers and like ornamentals, things for pollinators. This is going to be for things I'm going to put out at the lake property. So this is going to be for the duck potato, right? So it's going to be in the wetlands. And then like I have, what's nice about the clips is that I have different size packets. I can put the smaller packets with the larger packets and they stay together. So I've got like the Heal-All, the Bergamot, and the lemon basil. These can all be used for teas. And then I've got here, I've got the squashes so far, right? So now I'm going to continue on with my seed order. And my next one I have is the common milkweed. Common milkweed is the plant that, you know, most people know that this is what the larvae of the monarch butterfly eat. There are other milkweeds. Some of them are actually harmful to them for whatever reason. Don't ask me. I don't know all the answers. But I do know that common milkweed is what they really need. I think the swamp milkweed is, there's swamp milkweed, and there's also like showy milkweed, and there's some other ones. I don't remember which one I read was harmful. If you know what that one was, go ahead and comment below. There are other milkweeds that are good for other sorts of butterflies and pollinators too. But the milkweed, remember, you're planting it for the larva. So when you see it infested and being eaten up by larvae, that's on purpose. We're planting it for the purpose of the monarchs. Some people think the monarchs don't come to Washington State, but they do. Yes, it's not like a huge migratory area for them, but they do come to Washington. When I lived in California, as a child, I saw monarchs all the time, and I remember having them land all over me. So it was really cool. I had like literally like just dozens of monarch butterflies landing all over my body, and I was in a public area like near a park where they had some beautiful, I'm sure they had milkweed nearby, but there were tons of people and they were only landing on me. So it was really like kind of magical. So I'm really in love with monarchs, and that's very special. So I will definitely be planting these. Now, when to plant them? So this is perennial. So when I'm planting these next time, it's going to be for the larva for next year, because there's no way I can have this growing in time for the monarch larva for this year. But, you know, and it does say, you know, year 2 is when you're going to have, you know, the flowering, which looks beautiful. So it's a wildflower, monarch butterflies. It's in butterfly gardens. It spreads easily, but we don't mind it to spread because it's desirable. It does need to be cold stratified. So best planted outside in fall or early spring. So I've already missed the spring window. Now I could put this in the refrigerator for for 4 weeks or a month and then try to plant it outside. But I kind of feel like, what's the point? I might as well just sow it in the fall because it's easier, and that's kind of how it would work anyway. It'd be more natural. I did plant this before, and then when it came up, I thought it was a weed, hence the term milkweed. When it's growing at first, it does look weedy. So if you're not familiar with it, you might do the same thing. I mean, I was in my 20s, so I'll give myself a little bit of grace, a couple of decades ago. But when I plant it this time, I'm going to definitely put a good clear tag of where it is located, so I don't accidentally, or somebody who's helping me doesn't accidentally weed it out. So this is for the monarchs, so I'll put that with my pollinators, right? And the next one I'm talking to you about is this plant called northern bedstraw. Yes, northern bedstraw. So here it says it has a sweet hay-like scent when dried. It was used for stuffing mattresses and pillows at medieval times. I thought that was a really cool fact about it, that it actually had a use. It's perennial. And I'm not sure how to say the scientific name. It's Gallium boreal or boreali. It's used in wildflower mixes. Easy germination. I like that. Come on, it's easy. Sow seeds in spring just below the soil. Keep moist. This plant adapts well to rocky or sandy soil. The foliage can become scorched if in excessive sunlight or heat. It prefers growing in cool climates. Okay, it can be weedy if left to itself. So I could plant this now. I know it's not ideal, but since it's a perennial, I'm not entirely like at a loss. I think if I plant a few seeds, I don't have a ton of seeds in here. I figure this is more of my interest, you know, not something that I necessarily think a lot of my friends and family would be really in love with. But I thought it would also look pretty, and I don't know how it hold up in arrangements. But since I've read that like baby's breath is so toxic, I thought maybe I could use northern bedstraw instead. I'm inferring, whether I'm right or wrong, comment below. I'm inferring that it's not going to be as dangerous as baby's breath, because if it's traditionally used to stuff mattresses and pillows in the olden days, then it's probably safer than baby's breath. So that is the idea that I have for using northern bedstraw. But I also thought how cool it would be to kind of get into those kind of neglected, old-fashioned ideas of how to wildcraft, and how interesting it would be to maybe make some kind of old-fashioned arts and crafts. I'd hate to waste the plants, you know, literally stuffing the dried plant into like a pillowcase or something. But how cool would it be to have some things that were made the way they used to be made? So this is more like a novelty plant for me. We'll see what I end up doing with that in the future, but I just thought it was cool. So great blue lobelia. Isn't that pretty? Kind of reminds me of like stalks, but also kind of like foxglove. Just that spiky look of it, like the long flower spike. Lobelia syphilitica. So it's not syphilis. Don't worry. It's not contagious. It might spread, but it's not an STD. You're going to be okay. All right. It's a perennial. It likes to be fall sown. Yay. So then I haven't missed my window. So like again, I said, I'm off my leg with my wound. So whenever I'm seeing now fall sowing, I'm kind of relieved, because I don't know how long it's going to take me to heal. That's why I'm telling you guys, plant perennials. You know, like I really do think aging in place is a beautiful thing. That's why I got a one-story home, and fortunately, my ex didn't fight me for it in the divorce. So it's mine, but so is the debt. So kind of house poor, but I have planted so many perennials. That's the one consolation I have right now, that I have cherry trees, plum trees, pear trees, apple trees, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, creeping raspberries, like just everything you can imagine, all the kinds of berries, all the kinds of fruits. I have an almond tree. I don't have cashews because it's not the right climate. I have chestnuts roasting on an open fire. I have like 14 different hazelnut trees in the backyard. like 5 of them are American, and they are, I don't want to say they're inferior, but they are slow growing and they do not produce much. But I've got all kinds of really cool different varieties of really strong producing hazelnut trees in the back. I also have a Turkish hazelnut in the front, and the Turkish hazelnut is amazing. I'm definitely going to be propagating that tree. It is like, wow, it's producing so many nuts, and it will be, I can tell already how easy it's going to be to propagate by its growth pattern. So I'm telling you guys, plant your perennials. Then when you have an injury or an illness or a tragedy, you don't lose your window. All you need to do is make sure that somebody hits that land with water, and everything is going to be okay. So, and with some of the deep-rooted perennials, they can survive without water for pretty long. So, that's my best advice to you if you don't want to be devastated by potential health issues, is get your plants growing in perennials or self-seeding annuals. If it's a self-seeding annual, it almost acts like a perennial because they pop up even without your work. So this says intense blue beauties contrast beautifully with cardinal flowers. Their deep red cousin. The cardinal flower is a deep red cousin. Okay, so I think that interested me because the cardinal flower is beloved by, I want to say, by hummingbirds. So I was hoping to get some. Yep, yes, that's for hummingbirds and butterflies. Oh, it says near streams and ponds. So I do want to plant this out on the lake property. And when I say lake property, it sounds like I'm privileged, but no, it's like a property that's come in and out of the family, back and forth between family members. Whenever somebody was getting a divorce or going through bankruptcy, like everybody was like shuffling this property around. It's not non-buildable. So it's kind of a novelty. I have this idea of making it an edible food forest with a lot of perennials that can take care of itself, and having it be a place to just go and enjoy nature. Because nowadays you can't even go camping without having a year in advance like reservation. So I just feel like it will be a wonderful nature reserve that my family can go and enjoy, and my friends as well. So that's my plan for it. And so since it says the water situation, that it thrives by lakes and stuff, I'm going to put this with the other one that I put for the lake. That's this one here. So I'm going to put these together so that I can take out I'm kind of organizing them as I'm going through them on what my purpose is for them. So again, this is going to be the lake property because that's where it will make the most sense to plant them. So those are going to go off to the side because it's not handy. I'm not going to be going out there probably this summer just because of what's going on with my lake. It's very sad though, because I really wanted to get out there this year. I was planning on getting a bunch of perennials out in the ground. I have a bunch of potted trees I wanted to plant out there this summer, but it just doesn't look like that is in the forecast. I keep losing my past flower footage, so I'm starting this part over again, you guys. It's getting so frustrating. Anyway, but luckily I'm trapped. Well, luckily I'm trapped in a chair with a wound vac. So, it is what it is. This is called passion flower. It's called pasque flower. Pasque, not passion. Pasque means passion. Passion flower is different, but this is pasque. It's about Christ, the passion of Christ. And the reason they call it Passion of Christ is because pasque flower is because it blooms around Easter time. Christ is risen, y'all. Christ is risen. If you look here, you have 2, 4, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm not sure that's 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Am I counting it wrong? It looks like it has 7 petals on some of them. Some of them looks like it has 6 petals. I'm not sure. So it's like 6, 7. I don't know. Anyway, that sound that you keep hearing, that blah, 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 is my wound vac. And the other sound you hear is my son snoring next to me. He's my little helper, and he is there in case I need to get up. But he was tired, so he went back to sleep. I think these look like eggs, like hard-boiled eggs. You got the yolk, and you got the whites. So thinking about Easter time, you guys. Also, the foliage looks kind of like a Christmas tree. So, you know, Jesus Christ, Christmas trees, and Tree of Life. So there are a lot of things about it that remind me of Christ besides the name. It's called Anemone patens Wolfgangiana. Like Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. So here we've got fall sowing, or you're going to plant them inside. Now, this comes with about 50 seeds. This packet was under $4. All of their larger seed counts are sold out, but there's like you can subscribe to have notifications, right? The information online, which I recorded multiple times, and it was over an hour, so I guess maybe it's good that I lost the footage because it was very long-winded. But I was kind of like going to show you through their website, but I keep losing that footage, so I'm going to have to move on without that. Go to the website. It is very simple. It's literally just Google Everwilde, okay, with an E at the end. So, full sun, all the packets have this kind of setup, right? They're perennials. They can live 50 years. These plants can live 50 years. They are native all across North America, not California, but like Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, Texas, Alaska. Like, it goes on and on, my friends. It goes on and on, my friends. So, perennials. They can grow 50 years. They're also nicknamed prairie crocus. I would start some of them, since I get 50 seeds, I would start some of them in the refrigerator, and I would start some of them outside and just do a comparison. And I keep a couple of seeds just in case neither method works, then I can try something else. I looked at their website at the reviews. Only one person gave them a bad review from what I read. And most likely they didn't follow the instructions that these need to be moist, cold stratified. So that means 12 weeks in a moist medium in the fridge, or you plant them outside in the fall. Okay? And you won't know in 12 weeks if they are going to sprout. Okay? You have to give them a chance. Perennials, native perennials, are not the same thing as growing an annual vegetable. Annual vegetables, you're going to be pretty certain that the germination is what you get when it sprouts. Now, I will tell you, like with Baker Creek seeds, if sometimes you'll get like a package that will say like low, overpacked due to low germination rate. And on those, I get excited because I get like double the seeds, or a bunch of extra seeds, and I always get a really high germination rate out of them. They are just legally required to say whatever the rate is on the normal time that it takes for them to sprout. So for example, if it was an annual vegetable and it's supposed to sprout in 3 to 5 days, if it took 12 days, they don't count those, but they still sprout, right? And that's actually part of evolution of the plant. Plants should not have all of their babies sprouting at the same time. All it takes is one little hungry animal coming around. Nom, 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 nom. They're all gone. All of them are gone. That's why some of them sprout all together, and then you're going to have a late sprouter, not just a late bloomer. You're going to have a late sprouter later, because guess what? If some vigorous, hungry deer comes by and eats a whole stand of your fresh little babies, or a squirrel comes by and is eating all the little, the little cotyledons, which are the new little baby leaves, you lost your little baby trees. But if there's a late sprouter, then you got one that survived. Okay, so that's part of nature. It's not the fault of the company. It's literally God. Okay, God does that. So I can't tell you how many times I planted something that said low germination rate. I actually went on True Leaf, and whenever True Leaf has a sale, it's because of low germination rates. Okay. If other companies like McGardener go on sale, the McGardener sales that they usually do them in late fall or winter. It's because of packaging. By law, you have to, like every year, they have to do new packaging. They can just do a sticker. If they do a new germination test on that batch of seeds, like if they still have 1,000 seeds and they take that same batch with the same lot number, which lot number is like right here. If they take that lot number and they do a germination test and it's still good, they'll just put a sticker on the plant thing and it'll say germination tested on this date, and then you count out 9 months to 12 months after that. That's the period that they can sell them. That's a lot of work for a $2 seed packet. And especially if they don't have a lot of them left. So what they'll do at the end of the year, at the end of the growing season, is McGardener will do huge discounts. That is a fabulous deal to do, by the way. Go on to McGardener, find out, look for their sale when they do those 50% discounts. And they're just trying to clear out the packaging. They can sell the seeds the next year, but they'd have to do manual labor. Somebody'd have to get paid to print those out, stick them on, all that kind of stuff, and that's an extra step. It's a better deal for them to continue to get money. They're not having to store the seeds, risk germination rates going down a little bit, and having to pay for more packaging and the time for people to handle the packaging. So that's how you read these here, and if they do another test and they see that the rate is lower, they can overpack the seed packet. And they could say germination rate is 52%, overpacked due to low germination rate, and then they are legally meeting the rules. What I'm going to do with my company, which is something I've decided, I'm taking all the best practices of all my favorite companies, and so like I'm not going to do the Mylar. The Mylar is not going to be what I do because my model for my company is small batches of seeds for backyard gardeners at an extremely frugal rate. Most people don't know how to store their seeds, and they end up throwing their seeds away. So what I'm going to do with my little company is provide a generous amount of seeds, but for that growing season. And I will have most of the information on how to grow them on a website or a file that they can access. I'll have all the legal stuff on the packet, but I will have all the growing information on a website because then I can update it regularly with like growing tips and what maybe somebody tells me, hey, I tried it this way and that way, this one worked better. Then I can say, hey, other people who bought the same plant from me, this is working better for them in this area. Okay, so that's going to be something I do. And then when if I do a germination test and it's low, I'm not going to sell the seeds. I'm not going to overpack the seeds because they're going to probably plant them wrong and they're going to die. And the plants are going to die, not the people. Well, I guess eventually everybody does. But I would plant them myself. And then instead of selling the seeds, I'm going to sell the plants. Because I know how to get a little bit higher germination rate. You can soak your seeds overnight. You can put a few drops of hydrogen peroxide in your water and soak those overnight in hydrogen peroxide droplets with water mixed in. You can sometimes, maybe a heat mat would make the germination work, all kind of stuff. Now, all those other tricks, by the way, it's illegal to include the plants that sprout in your calculations if the person had to do those extra steps. So if you normally don't have to soak seeds, but you soaked them, and you don't normally have to use hydrogen peroxide, but you did, if you don't normally have to use a heat mat, but you did, all of those extra steps, it's illegal to use that count. So I wouldn't sell those seeds. I would just plant them, grow them, sell the plants, right? So that's what I'm going to do is like high germination rate, sell the seed packets. Low germination rate, oh, I guess I'm going to plant them. So I bought a bunch of seeds off of True Leaf. I'm so excited about it because I bought like, I already grow lemon balm and I've got plenty for myself, like in family, but I'm going to plant just tens or hundreds of thousands of lemon balm seeds. And then because they had low germination rate for them, which is within, again, like I said, a certain time period of, if it's a certain, that's the Voonvac, not me, the blah, 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 blah. If it says, you know, they're supposed to grow within like a couple weeks and they don't, well, they have to say that rate on their packaging. And so I'm going to plant them. And if it takes a year, I'm going to transplant them and sell the plants. And that's fabulous because those seeds would have probably gotten thrown out or composted too deeply, and then they would have been wasted. So it's like a rescue. It's like basically like animal services or like the humane shelter for plants is buying the plants that are on sale, the seeds that are on sale. I also like to buy plants on sale. Go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, and I go to the clearance rack. Those plants can sometimes look horrible. Oftentimes, if they're perennial, then I plant them and I get plants. They'll come back the next year. They look beautiful the next year. But I got them for like 90% off sometimes. So I've done that with echinacea, carnations, snapdragons. The snapdragons, they readily self-seed. And so sometimes they don't look so pretty, but you buy the plant and then you literally can collect the seeds off of it. Now you've got the seeds, and if it was a perennial, the perennial comes back and you've got seeds for like $1 or $2. Check those clearance racks. I am for serious, for serious. That's not good English. Anyway, so this information here is beautiful. If you go to the website, there are several tabs. I was going to show that to you, but I did 2 different recordings that got deleted. So if you go to the website and you typed in Pasque, Pasque, and you scroll down, there's a map. It shows you that this plant is native. All the dark green. Okay, so I'll show you right here. So all the dark green on the map, this is Washington. That's like the capital, Olympia. Up here, Port Angeles, Port Townsend, and Sequim. Forks over here. You've got Oregon, Idaho, get down here to Texas, all of the provinces and territories of Canada, except for a little bit up here. And then you've got all the way up to Alaska. Wow, like really far up. So all of the north and middle states, Midwest, they all grow Pasque flower. And if you look over here, all great reviews except for one. And the one that wasn't good is because oh no. Okay. Ignore that. I need a new computer. Does anyone want to buy me a new computer? I'm just joking. My computer is refurbished and sometimes it has issues. So, anyway, there's great information there. If you go to the sections, you click through all of them, you read through it, and you're going to be really impressed. Pasque means passion, and that's not because they're like, let's kiss and make out passion. It is Jesus Christ passion, because these are going to sprout in or around Easter. Now, I don't know if all of these have 7 petals. I was trying to count them, but this one here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6, 7. That's not Christian, by the way. Kind of icky if you really research it, what that means. 2, 4, 6, 7. God created the heavens and the earth. He created earth in 7 days. So you have, regenesis and everything. You got the white of the egg. You got the yolk of the egg. So you got, here you have, these are like your little egg and then you got the green here that looks to me like a Christmas tree. It's all fuzzy, by the way. And the seed pods, which you can't see in this picture, that when it goes to flower, after it flowers, the seed pods look kind of like a thorny bush, like the crown of thorns that was placed upon Christ's head. So I like to plant things that are symbolic to me, and this is very symbolic of my faith. So Pasque is passion. The scientific name is Anemone patens wolfgangiana. So anemone, the way I remember that is that the flower, when it's going to seed, that kind of thorny looking, I'm not sure if it actually is thorny, it just looks like that. It looks like an anemone. So, and then Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart is one of my most famous composers of all time. So, and some plants have patents. I'm just kidding. So I always come up with ways of remembering the scientific name. So definitely if someone says anemone, I'm going to go, oh, that's going to be a passiflower. It looks like an anemone. And some plants have patents. This one doesn't have a patent because it's native. Okay. And then Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Wolfgangi Anna. My sister's name is Anna. It's probably Anna. Wolfgangiana. Okay. Perennial. It's going to grow up to 50 years. It can grow for 50 years. You guys, that's crazy. 50 years. That's amazing. There's 50 seeds in here, by the way. 50 seeds and 50 years. You're going to plant this in the fall, or you can plant them in a container in your fridge. I don't use the plastic bag method anymore if it's for a long period of time. If it's like a week or two, fine. But if it's 12 weeks or 100 days, I'm going to tape it to the inside of my, I used to tape it to the inside of my refrigerator on a plastic bag with a label. Now I'm just like, you know what? If I need to, I will dedicate a whole crisper drawer in the fridge to plants. And I will put them in little, reusable plastic containers. So I will put in cocoa core, damp cocoa core, plant the seeds, label the top, put the top on it, snap it into place, put the date that I planted it, and then the date to take it out. And then also set a reminder on couple reminders on my phone. So I would count out 12 weeks from that day. On the container, I'd say what day to take it out. And then on my phone, I would give myself an alarm, just like an appointment. Take this out of the fridge and plant it. And then 2 or 3 days later, I would do it again. Hey, did you take this out and plant it yet? Because my ADHD is strong. Yes. So that definitely helps me to remember them. And then occasionally I will open up the crisper drawer and I will take out all of the things and I will look at all of them. I'll use a toothpick to pick out any mold if there's mold. And I will use a spritz bottle with, I call it dechlorinated water. All I do is put tap water into the spritz bottle and I leave it open overnight. Then I put the spritzer back into it because you want the chlorine to evaporate. And then I spritz my plants and my seeds with that, put the cap back on, and I put it back in the fridge. Do not leave it out very long when you're doing this process because then it confuses the plant, the little embryos, into thinking that it's spring and you're trying to give it the feeling that it's winter. So it needs to get that. And the reason why you do that is because these are native plants, and in North America, especially in northern North America, we have winter, and native plants have evolved to know it was cold and now it's warm. Let's go ahead and open up now. By the way, if you don't see the germination rate and that kind of stuff on perennials, especially if it needs cold stratification, that is normal. And that's because this year would have had to pass already for them to have that data. Whereas, let's say you're planting a brassica, or you're planting, peas or something, or a sunflower. Those, with the things that don't need to be cold stratified, you plant it, maybe you soak them overnight and you plant them on a grow mat, and then a couple days later, almost all of your plants sprouted. You count them, boom, 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 boom. Whatever, you divide the numerator by the denominator, and you've got your germination rate. But you can't do that with these because these take a long time. If you are ignorant and you go onto someone's website when you bought seeds and you say something like somebody said on this, they said only 2 out of 24 seeds sprouted. By the way, there's 50 seeds, not 24. Second, if you bought the seeds in April, you wouldn't know by May something that they were good or bad. because you could not have cold stratified them in that amount of time. So I trust Everwilde. They take really good care of their seeds. These mylar bags are expensive for them to provide you with. They even have zipper tops. So I don't put all my eggs in one basket. These look like eggs. Don't put all your pasque flowers in one basket. I would probably start 10 in a Ziploc bag in the fridge with a damp paper towel. I would do maybe 10 on damp cocoa core in a little container in the crisper drawer. And then maybe I do 10, in a pot outside in the fall. And then if none of those methods worked, I'd still have 20 seeds left and I could try them again. Or if I noticed, hey, the one in the crisper drawer worked the best, then I would go the next year, I'm going to do the rest of these the way that worked the best for me. And that's how you trial and error, learn how to plant that particular type of plant. That's what you need to do. All right, so let's take a look here. This is the Everwilde website. And as you can see up here, they have free shipping on orders of over $75. So if you're just looking for you want to buy a couple packets of seeds, this is not where you're going to go. But if you're like, you have a lot of orders to do, or you want to spend $75 or more, that's what gets you the free shipping, which is I think definitely worth it. And they don't do free seed packets like rareseeds.com or Baker Creek does, but they have larger seed packets. So if you wanted to have a lot, I have a really big yard, but I also give away plants as gifts. I trade them. I'm part of all these different free seed and plant groups where I give away plants, they give away plants, and that way they get things that I have, I get things that they have, and there's no money involved, which is cool because you don't have to have a business license to trade your plants. You do if you're trying to sell things, even if it's from your own garden. So that's something to know about. Not sure how crazy regulated things are, but that I'm one of those rule followers. So if I was going to do that, I would do it the right way, because not that I'm super, I want to consider myself ethical, but the reality is it's fear of Big Brother. So here we have Everwilde Farms, beautiful website, so much information. If you want a big, seed order, these are very expensive here, but if you just wanted 50 seeds, it's $4, and these are perennial. And if you look through the information here, it tells you really cool stuff like pasque means passion, and that's because they bloom around Easter, like Passion of the Christ, Also, if you think of a passion flower and maypop, those plants are actually named after the stories that the priests would tell the Native Americans, trying to come up with an analogy or a metaphor or a simile to figuratively explain Christianity to the Native American people. So they with the maypop and the passion flower, they talk about the thorn, the thorn crown that they put on Christ and how it looks like that, and it opens up and all this stuff. So a lot of the things that say pasque or passion, it's actually about Christianity. I love to plant things that are about my faith, that are about people I love. So for example, I had a friend growing up named Sarah, and she passed away when she was only 26 years old of pneumonia. And so I plant it's a Sarah Hendricks peony for her. That wasn't her last name, but that's the name of the peony. I planted Rose of Sharon in honor of my Aunt Sharon, who passed away. I have a triploid apple tree. My little brother is still alive, but triploid apples basically have a plant version of Down syndrome. And my brother has Downs, so I planted that in honor of my brother. I have a Brita medlar in honor of my friend Brenda, who's still alive. So I plant I plant plants in honor of things that are symbolic to me. So then when I'm watering that plant, or when I'm harvesting that apple, or I'm, pruning something, I am in a way visiting the people and thinking about them, and it triggers memories and stuff like that. So sometimes it's their favorite plant if they had one, or if it's something that has their name in it or something close to their name, I do that as well. So like I have a twin berry in honor to honor my niece and nephew are twins. Also, my uncle and aunt were twins. Um, and so I've got the twin berry in honor of the twins in my family. And I've got a tayberry in honor of my sister Tay Tay. And I've got I grow you know different kinds of tomatoes that it's like a, what's it called? It's like a Martin something, like Martino something. It's kind of a Roma-esque type tomato in honor of my little boy, my son. And then I have a Vincent kiwi vine, which is, I can't find a male version of it for some reason, but I've got the female version with one of my son's names in it. I plant olive trees for my daughter Olivia. I'm always doing all of these different things. Like even I have a lilac bush in the front that's named Josie after my ex-husband Jose, which I planted it before we got divorced, but it's doing beautifully. So it's like, you know what? I love lilacs, so I'm going to keep it. I have a Linda rose bush. I even have rose bushes named after presidents. I'm pretty sure I have like a Abe Lincoln or something like that. It's a beautiful white rose. It smells incredible. So, what I'm looking for now, I'm looking for a yellow rhododendron. And that is in honor of my grandma, because before she passed away, she was 93. I asked her what was her favorite plant she ever had, and she said she loves them all, but she used to have a yellow rhodie, and she really thought it was beautiful. So I'm on the lookout for a yellow rhodie. And then I want to plant Louisia, which is a flower that I have been shopping for on Baker Creek. So I'm doing all this stuff like that, right? I also plant anything about my faith. So I am a Christian, and that is one of the reasons why my channel is moving so slowly. It kind of the algorithm kind of I wouldn't say pigeonholes you, but it definitely does track the things that you're into, the things that you mention on your channel, and it's not really popular. I don't know why, considering the fact that so many people are Christian in our country, why it's not popular, but whatever, I'm not sure why our Lord and Savior isn't popular. So I do like to grow things like this, and that's why I'm planting it. It's beautiful. It's weird looking too. Look at this. It looks fuzzy. Like this, even the flower. See, look close. The flowers. When I kind of hover, it highlights the wrong area, but onto the right side, it's gonna pop up, and you can see from the image at least, it looks like the stem, the leaves, and the flower petals themselves all look kind of fuzzy. I don't know if that's what it looks like in real life, or if it's just like the picture quality, but I don't know. It's beautiful. If you click on the pictures, usually you can click through and just kind of hover and click. And for some reason, and it works better, works pretty good on my phone too. But if you zoom in on these, you can read through what's going to actually say on the seed packet. And if you want to pause the video and zoom in, you can see more information, but you can see it's perennial. So the information that they put on their seed packets is kind of incredible, and they are one of the few companies that follows the actual laws about how you have to label. For example, you're supposed to include the lot number, the idea being, let's say you planted these seeds and the germination rate was bad. Well, you contact the company, and then they would know that this lot number was good or bad, right? Or if you had really good reviews, then they would be able to see, okay, well, you bought that seed packet with that lot number. that lot is good. So then, for instance, if I was going to, I'm starting a company of my own, and I'm learning from the best practices of all my favorite companies. So I'm kind of modeling my company with the best of each thing. For example, and McGardener offers lower seed count packets, so you can kind of try out the different seeds. So does Nikitovka, which is a Ukrainian company. And they also, those two companies, and McGardener and Nikitovka, are the cheapest you can basically get. And you don't have to buy a ton of seeds to get the free shipping. It's pretty reasonable. I don't remember what it is exactly, if it's like $10 or $25, but you can order a small number of seeds and you get really good deals. And it's enough for that garden for that year. Basically, it's maybe not enough to plant it and then have seeds left over for the next year, unless you're just doing a little bit here and there experimenting. But so that's what I like to do. So I'm like, okay, well, and also the packaging for Emma Gardner, their packaging on the back has really good information as well. And like on the margins on the side, Emma Gardner has a really good data. And then Everwilde has the Mylar, right, which I really like. I don't like the size of the packets for Baker Creek. They're really big and floppy. And so I found them kind of hard to store. They have a ton of information, so I do like that part. So it's like upside, downside, lots of good information, but the seed packets are pretty big compared to how much seeds are actually in them. And then, like, I really like the packaging for Emma Gardner because it has all the data on how to grow it, like really easy to find. You don't have to read this whole narrative. What's cool about Everwild, same kind of deal. All at the top consistently, you have common name, scientific name, how much sun, when to grow it, how deep to grow it, how much to water it, when is it going to flower, how tall and big does it grow, is it an annual or perennial? This is perennial, which means it grows multiple years. In fact, if you read through the information, it tells you that the flowers can live 50 years. And it shows you there's going to be maps and stuff like that. So if you click out of this and scroll down, the maps are beautiful. It is native to Washington State. It's native to Oregon, Canada, Alaska, all across the Midwest. So we're going to have like, besides Oregon, this is Pacific Northwest. We're going to have Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, yada, 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 all the way down to Texas. So we've got Texas all the way up, got the north and south, and you got the north and the south, and you got all these states in here and so forth, and Michigan and all that. So you have all of this, okay, that it's native here. You also have the scientific name again here, Anemone patens wolfgangiana. I just want to say Wolfgangiana. So anemone, like a sea anemone, which if you look back over here, you know what? I can kind of see that. It looks kind of like a sea anemone. That's going to be easy to remember the scientific name. Anemone, patens, okay? Wolfgang, like Amadeus Mozart, Wolfgang. So that'll be memorable. I always come up with like these little memory cues. Like my memory cue for Black-Eyed Susan is Rudbeckia, because it's like Black-Eyed Susan, she got punched in the eye and got a black eye. That was really rude, Becky. Don't do that, right? So Rudbeckia is Black-Eyed Susan because she got knocked in the eye, right? So I always find these like little memory cues, and that's the teacher in me. So Pasch flower, Pasch means passion, and it's about Jesus. Maybe they're thinking, and I'm just gonna make an inference here because it doesn't say. I'm looking at the white flowers, so that's purity, right? So the purity of the white flower, why he washes your sins white as snow. It flowers around the time of Easter. So that's the passion, right? And then this looks like the crown of thorns, right? And then you have Easter. It looks like little Easter eggs. You got the white and the yellow yolk. So, and then it looks like, the greenery. Think about a Christmas tree. So I think this is absolutely beautiful plant, and I'm planting it because of my faith. And I actually did one of these little videos already, and it got erased. Sorry. So I lost a little bit of my ideas, but um, I like to plant things in honor of loved ones. So I planted Linda roses after my mom, and she's still alive. So I don't just do it like posthumously. I do it also like just because I love people, and I like to include people in my garden. Not everybody in my family is interested in gardening, but I like to have things that remind me of the people I love. It's kind of like a photo album. It's just like, don't forget these people, they're part of you. I planted Vincent kiwi vines after my son, my oldest son. It's a female, so that's kind of ironic. Sorry, Vince. Um, I planted Martino Roma tomatoes after my youngest son. I planted olive trees for my daughter. Um, I planted a Brita Medlar um, tree after my friend Brenda. It's not Brenda Medlar, it's Brita Medlar giant. And those are great, by the way. If you haven't planted medlars, Medlar, they're trees with edible fruit. They are related to rose bushes and apples or something. But it's a tree, and it has a very inappropriate end of the fruit. It looks like a cat booty, which is not a little offsetting. But the fruit, you basically let it blet. It's like BLEHT or BLET, something like that. And bletting is basically like fermenting inside of the what looks kind of like a rose hip, but brown and bigger. And you let it blet, and then you squeeze out and suck out the flesh of it. And it's supposed to taste like apple, like a what's it called? Not apple pie filling. I'm kind of out of it right now, you guys. I've been up with my leg up in the air, taking medications and antibiotics and stuff for like a long time. So I was in the hospital for almost a week. It was 6 nights and 7 days with MRSA. Probably got it during my surgery. I had a non-cancerous tumor removed, and then went back to work, and it split open. Yes, imagine that. Okay, so apparently having an infection like that can actually affect your cognitive abilities because of inflammation. So I did a lot of Googling. So I am Dr. Google over here. But I love this plant already, and I haven't even planted it, but I'm so excited. So it's like very unusual. It's native. I love that. It's cold hardy all the way to Alaska. It can live 50 years. It's named after Christ. You can hear my wound vac making its little farting sounds over here, letting out a little bit of the air. It says it's no longer considered safe for medicinal or culinary use. So apparently there must have been some history of it being used that way, but now they probably know more. I'm not planning it for that reason. And so if something has like a really, like if it's edible and medicinal, all that kind of stuff, I'm buying something bigger. But if it's not that, and I just want like a specimen, I'm buying the smaller packet. So especially if you look at these prices, this is steep. $768 for a fourth of a pound. 18,000 seeds is $192. And then, let's see, 9,000, 4,500 seeds for $67. And then cut that in half, 2,000, 1,000 or so for $23, 250 seeds ish for $10, or 50 seeds for $4. So clearly, this is not the best deal per seed, but it's the price point. If you're buying seeds from Baker Creek, that's about what you pay. I don't think Baker Creek has these. So these are past. You know what? You could go ahead and look that up really fast. And watch more information over here. They tells you how to grow it and all that stuff. You can also click on Fast Facts. It tells you it's going to be cold, wet for 12 weeks, germination, stratified for 12 weeks. So what I will probably do is I will probably keep like a third of them, 3 for the Trinity. I will save a third of them in case they don't grow well and I mess up. I will cold stratify a third of them in the fridge, and then plant them outside. And then I will plant some in the fall and let them stratify naturally in nature. So I'm going to do it kind of unnaturally, the way we usually do this with like just refrigerator. You can put it in like a damp, sterile mix. I like to use damp cocoa coir. You can use sand, like damp sand. You can use paper towels. Yes, you can. But I am steering away from the paper towel method for anything that's like a long time to germinate. So this is 12 weeks of cold stratification. I don't want to have to deal with moldy paper towels, and they do mold. So I would rather go with not a salty sand from the beach, but like literally playground sand, sand that you would get from like Home Depot or Lowe's. So I would do damp sand, or I would do damp cocoa coir, because I have never had those mediums mold on me. And I would do them not in a Ziploc bag. Those, my family tends to throw those out because they think it's spoiled food. But when I did them in Ziploc bags, I would tape them to the inside door of the refrigerator, because then they're not taking up space, and it's pretty clear this is something mom put in there on purpose. It's not a rotten snack. Okay. So I would tape it to the inside of the door if I was using the paper towel Ziploc method, bag method. I like to now use, and I'm pretty married to the idea of it, using like a leftover like to-go container where it has a clear top. It has like the black bottoms. And then I will do the medium in the bottom, make it damp, plant the seeds on top, basically planting the seeds, and then if it tells you to have it covered or whatever, I do that. If it doesn't say to have it covered, then I don't. I make sure it's nice and damp. I label it clearly. I cover the label with clear tape so that over those 12 weeks, which a lot can happen in that time, the label doesn't smear. I'll make a note to myself too 12 weeks later on my phone with a little alarm that says, grab the pasque flower from the fridge and plant it out. And that way I have that reminder. I will also write on the container, if I was doing this now, which is not a good time to do it now, I should have done this before. If I was going to do it right now, I'd be like, okay, well, all of July, all of August, all of September, and I'd say planting out in October. That doesn't make sense. But if this is what I was doing, that's what I would do. I'd say October 1st, pull these and plant them, right? I'd write it on the container. I'd have a reminder on my phone, and I'd have it actually taped to the container with all that information. So then my kids see and they're like, okay, well, it's not going to be there forever. It's only there until this date. If they're cleaning out the fridge, they see it and they go, okay, Mom, deal with this plant. Okay. So that's a little, if you have ADHD like me, it might be something to help you. When I usually make lists, I do a reminder on my phone, on my calendar, with like the day before, an hour before, 10 minutes before, like multiple reminders. And I might even do a couple days later, do another reminder, because in case I dismissed it, forgot about it, got distracted, and it might just say, it might have a question, did you remember the pasque flowers in the fridge? But I wouldn't be doing it that time. I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to plant some in the fall because it says cold wet for 12 weeks. So if they're native flowers, which they are, then they have been planting themselves for millions of years. So I would maybe do a couple succession plantings of, because I'm doing an experiment, maybe do one container with a sprinkle of seeds, maybe do 10 seeds in October, and then do 10 more seeds in November, and then do 5 seeds maybe in December even. And then, okay, if I'm looking at when spring is, so April 1st is usually when I do a lot of spring plantings, but I'm okay, when is my first frost? Well, it's probably gonna be around May. My last frost is around May 10th. So okay, that gives me 6 weeks. Okay, so I'm gonna be okay. Well, I'm gonna have to go back to the beginning of March. That gives me 10 weeks. Okay, go back to the beginning of February. Okay, February. You can also Google Like, what is 12 weeks from May 10th or whenever your last expected frost is for the year? And that's when you would start cold stratifying something in your refrigerator. That way, when you pull it out, you can actually take that container and put it outside, have it go for a couple of days even, and before you transplant it, check on them and see if they're sprouting. What you don't want to have happen is have sprouts touching the lids, because when my experience is when the stems or leaves, the top of the plant especially, once it hits the plastic, it starts to rot. So if you're doing it in a Ziploc bag and it starts to sprout in the bag, which a lot of native plants will, then it will start rotting practically immediately. Also, sometimes I can't get the roots out of the napkins or paper towels. So I would rather plant it in a medium that doesn't disturb the plant. I have a lot less plant death, and it doesn't affect the germination rate. I think it's better. So it takes up a little bit more space, sure, but you know what? Have one crisper drawer that's just for plant stuff. So one crisper drawer for your fruits and vegetables, one crisper drawer for your plant stuff, because those are your future. Some of them are going to be your future vegetables, right? So anyway, this is not a vegetable. Don't eat it. Don't die. That one lady says. Don't die. But also one thing I go to is right here. This is right here where it says growing. When I find information on whether something is edible or not, this is usually where I find it, is like right there. Okay, Fast Facts is going to tell me if I have to like do a special treatment to it. And then reviews. Okay. I'm going to tell you something right now. They have beautiful germination rate. I'm pretty certain that their feedback here, where it says from the company, it says they had to cold stratified. 2 out of 24 sprouted without cold stratification. Okay. Sometimes if you receive seeds and they need cold stratification, that company might have already cold stratified it for you. These are not going to be pre-cold stratified. They specifically tell you that you're supposed to cold stratify them. So when this person makes that comment here, that 1 star, they didn't follow the instructions. People need to read. Okay, here, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. And these are all verified purchases, by the way. So they only have 1 bad star. Okay. And this person here, also they planted, it says May 5th, which you're cold stratifying them for 12 weeks. Then you're planting them. And who knows, that's my wound vac, not me passing gas, you guys. That sound is my wound vac. So you do have to cold stratify them. So this person wasted their seeds. And how many seeds do you get? You get 50 seeds. So that person should still have 26 seeds left. And they can plant them. If you got 1 Pask flower out of $4, it's worth it. If you went to Home Depot or Lowe's or some store, 1 plant, they don't even offer these. These are very special. They don't even offer this. You'd be getting like a pansy for $4. You'd be getting like a broccoli or 1 squash plant for $4. So this is a really great deal. If you have lots of trial and error and you make mistakes, but you still get 1 plant out of those 50 seeds for $4, that's success, especially if you're a new gardener. They need cold stratification. I've always had great luck with Everwilde. They have beautiful germination rates. And guess what they do on their packaging? If you go to the packaging, boom, down here. Okay, now you look off to the right. It says, well, this one doesn't say it. You know why? Okay, so to do the germination rate, they would have to wait 12 weeks in the cold, then let them sprout for however long it takes. So for perennials like this, it can take a really long time. And guess what? That person who said 2 out of 24, if you leave those seeds in the soil longer, you might actually see them sprout later. Native seeds do not sprout at the same predictable rate as like an annual vegetable. Annual vegetables have been artificially selected for that rate. So like if you think about it this way, if you planted cauliflower and you're supposed to have it's supposed to sprout in like 5 days. The ones that get planted in your garden are the ones that sprouted in 5 days. You might even dispose of the rest of the soil, possibly. You might throw it in your compost bin, or it might get mixed in with something else, get planted deeper, or whatever. You are planting over and over again the ones that sprouted fast. Over thousands of years, it goes down to like you start artificially selecting the ones that sprout all at the same time. In nature, it would be stupid for the plant to grow and sprout all at the same time. An animal comes along, chomp, 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 or there's a really hard freeze, and if they're already sprouting, you lose your plants. So when you're planting perennials that are native to where you live, you will see a more inconsistent sprouting time. That is to be expected. The people who give bad reviews for most perennials and like for example, I really like the Tree Seed Man on Etsy. Go check him out. The Tree Seed Man Etsy. He has tons of seeds. I want to say like over 1,000 different kinds of like tree seeds, and they are awesome. When you can tell who's ignorant by their reviews, and if let's say somebody buys 5 seed packets and they screw up on all 5 of them, and they leave 5 bad reviews for the dude, and then you look at all the other ones and all the other ones are glowing. That person who's making those comments, they didn't look at the instructions. Tree Seed Man includes instructions, very specific. Almost all of them need coal stratification because most of them are native trees. And so, like especially if you're planting them far north, like Washington State, anywhere along the top area of the country, almost all of the trees need coal stratification. And he'll specifically tell people it needs to be moist. It needs to be moist. It needs to be moist, and it needs to be cold for like most of them like 100 days. Over 3 months of coal stratification. Somebody throws those seeds in the ground in April or May, and they don't get that growth that they're expecting. Now, and then they hop on and they do their little, right? They do their little Karen review, and then they ruin people's businesses because they don't know what they're doing. They don't follow the instructions. They don't read the instructions. And if I was going to plant something and I spent a lot of money on something, I would not plant all of them at once, because if I made a mistake, I want to go, okay, well, I'm going to go back. I still have 5 seeds left. I learned from my mistake, and I'm going to plant these the right way. Okay. And if that person watches that pot, if they planted it in a pot and they have it labeled and they wait a year, it's still possible that those seeds are going to sprout. It happens all the time. For example, Baker Creek. If you buy seeds from Baker Creek, if you buy seeds from Baker Creek Seed Company, rareseeds.com, if they send you seeds that they did a germination test on and it's less than 70% or so, they will have a little sticker on it that says overpacked due to low germination. Almost every time I've gotten that sticker, I'm like excited. I'm like, whoop, whoop, because I'll plant them. Almost every time I get nearly 100% germination eventually. Because what will happen is I'll get that 67% germination rate right away. I'll plant those plants out, but I am not dumb. I've learned over time, most of those seeds are still going to sprout. They're just not going to sprout in the time period that is required by law on the labeling. Now, on the labeling here, for the rates. It is almost impossible to actually calculate the rates and then sell them in a timely manner. So if you got seeds, let's say, I bought some seeds from Burnt Ridge Nursery for some chestnut trees, which I do all the time. They could not have done a germination test on them yet. They can't, because you have to cold stratify them for 100 days. You have to scarify them or soak them, put them in a damp, moist medium, or keep them damp, don't let them dry out. They have to be kept cold for 100 days, and then you test it, right? And then from that point, once they sprout, you can say for 9 months to 12 months, depending on the state. In Washington, it's 9 months. You can use that germination rate legally, okay? So take the seed in, let's say, October, November, December, do a germination test that takes 100 days just to keep it cold, and then let it sprout. The math isn't math, you guys. The laws are not, they don't really meet the requirements for perennials. They don't, especially things that need to be cold stratified. So if somebody, they can't put down all the data here, that's because they're not annuals. They're not, this is not, I mentioned broccoli, okay? They're not radishes. These aren't radishes. These are perennials. So you're not going to have this data because of the length of time it takes to do a germination test. Sometimes you'll see something here that will say like in process or ongoing or something like that, like started or initiated or something like that. They don't have the data. Origin NA. Well, okay, here's the origin. North America. This is definitely going to be from USA. These are native plants. So now they could have been from California. I'm probably not. Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, all the way down to Texas. If you look at that map down here, any of the territories and provinces of Canada, Alaska. So the seeds could have been collected from any of these places. It's definitely North America. Okay. All right. So that is enough about that. But I am so excited about the pasque flower. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And I'm hoping that I can get up off my leg and start planting some of these things. Ooh, but what's nice about this is that they are in Mylar and they last longer. Now they are required, if they have done the germination test, to write down like a best by date, or they can just put down the date they did the test, and that you're basically kind of guaranteed within 9 months to a year that if you plant them, they're going to grow. The reality is they're going to last a whole heck of a lot longer than that. But never throw away seeds. Always give them a chance. Throw them in the soil and give them a chance. Our next packet here is sweet marjoram. And one thing I would say about this is if you don't have a lot of money for seeds, you can go for just oregano. Sweet marjoram is a lot like oregano, so if you're like pressed for money, you don't have to get marjoram. But this order I actually put in quite a while ago, so now money is tight. I'm really thankful that I put this in before. And prices are always going up, so whenever you can get seeds, you're just going to realize that yes, some places will do like a sale. Those sales are going to be on seeds from the previous year. If you're going to plant them right away, go for it. But if you're trying to seed save, this is like an investment for me, especially in the Mylar. So sweet marjoram and Aragonum majorana. I'm not saying that correctly. Okay, let's try this again. So it's like oregano. Oreganum, and then like marjoram, but majorana. So I say that quickly, 3 times fast. And So if you can see here, same genus as oregano, and it's like a lighter, to me, it's very, so yeah, it's very lighter compared to oregano. I think it has a little bit sweeter and milder. So if you like that really strong oregano flavor, go for that. If you want it to be a little bit more mild, one thing I noticed about oregano is that it's more intense after it's dried. So if you want it to be lighter, you can eat oregano fresh. And then if you want it to be stronger, you can dry it, or you can grow sweet marjoram. 90 days, but that's like to be able to do your first harvest. This is going to be a perennial, and all the required information is here. If you were to scan any of these, it would bring you to the product and the growing information. And it's a perennial. So it says perennial, but it says 90 days. So a lot of packets will say like perennial here. It says 90 days because that's how long it will take you to get your first harvest. But perennial means that you're going to have it for many years. So once after that 90 days, you're going to continuously have it. My oregano kind of dies back in the winter, but then it's like not, kind of like wilts back. And then in the spring, it bursts forth again. The next seed variety is an herb called tarragon, which many people are not familiar with. And sometimes in order to try something, you have to grow it yourself. So this is Artemisia dracanculus. And there's a little bit of glue on there. I had a project I was doing, and I got a little bit of just a little glue stick on my fingers, and I transferred it onto here. So it's Artemisia dracanculus, like a dragon. Dracanculus sounds like a dragon, and a vampire. Count Dracula had a baby, Artemisia, and it is 365 days. So what do they mean by that? So this is going to be a perennial, right? And you're probably not going to harvest it for a year. So sometimes it's like with a fruit tree. When you plant fruit trees, if you're planting it from seed, it might be 15 years, possibly, before you get fruit off of that tree. If you're planting it from a cutting, not as long. But when you're planting perennials, sometimes you're waiting a little bit longer. Maybe you can take a little bit here and there, but not a full harvest. It says that the aromatic pale green leaves of tarragon are best used fresh, as they lose their flavor when dried. You can use them to flavor chicken, fish, or to infuse oil or vinegar. So if you're doing it fresh, maybe you could infuse oil or vinegar. Maybe try freezing that and see if that can preserve the flavor. That might be an idea. So you're starting it inside before the last frost by about a month. So in Washington, that would be the very beginning of April. And then you're going to grow it inside, and then after there's no more chance of frost, then you would plant it outside. So, tarragon develops its full flavor when left to itself to dry in soil and abundant sunlight. Don't overwater and keep the plant trimmed. Nice. So this is going to be fun to grow. I'm pretty sure I planted tarragon before, and then I couldn't remember what I planted where, because I planted several new to me herbs. At the time it was, I want to say, let me think for a second. There's summer and winter. It goes really good with potato salad. Summer and winter what? Savory. Okay, so I was planting summer and winter savory and tarragon at the same time, and I lost track of what is what, and so I don't remember what it tastes like, and I need to plant it again because I had a little greenhouse situation happening where it just got far too hot in one of my greenhouses. So airflow is important. If you have a greenhouse, it can be a blessing, but it also can just be just far too hot at certain times of the year. And that year that I lost a bunch of my herbs in there, it had gotten up to, I want to say like 115. It might have been 111. But inside the greenhouse, it was a lot hotter. So I'm going to try again and we'll see how it goes. So eating this fresh, but like I said, on here it says that you can also infuse oils and stuff. So maybe I would try freezing those or making a stock and freezing the stock and then having it for sort of fresh use, but not drying it. If you have experience growing and using tarragon, pop a comment below. Next up, we have dark opal purple basil. And that is beautiful. It looks kind of like, it looks kind of like, what is it? Shiso. Doesn't that look a little bit like shiso? Anyway, to me, I think it kind of does. So looking here, it is 70 days, full sun. It says this herb gem shines for its intense fragrance and dark plum-colored leaves, variegated with green. Dark opal purple basil adds a lovely dark undertone to other brightly colored flowers and vegetables, used as any other basil for aromatic or culinary purposes. Sow in cool climates. Start seeds indoors 3 to 4 weeks before the last frost date, sowing thinly in flats and providing heat to speed germination. So like on a grow mat would be great. Transplant 15 to 18 inches apart, or about 1 foot to 1.5 feet apart. To direct sow, plant seeds 1/4 inch deep in rich soil, or I just barely cover, when I plant basil, I just barely cover them up and kind of tamp them in. I make sure that when I water that they don't rise to the surface. If they do, just put a little bit more soil on top of that. It thrives in moist, well-drained soil. Cover if temperatures drop below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And it does seem, to prevent it from bolting or going to seed too fast, you can just pinch the top off of them and then it makes them grow more bushy. You'll get more leaves that way, bigger harvest, and a longer harvest because then the energy goes back into making the leaves and not into making seeds and flowers. So, and there's a lot of seeds in here, you guys. Tons. I love the Bible verses here. God has made everything beautiful in his time. Ecclesiastes 3:11. I love that. And these, of course, they're not selling GMO seeds to home gardeners. However, one of my hacks has always been to, if you don't have garden seeds, you can plant seeds from the grocery store. You can actually buy basil seeds from Asian markets. They sell them because there's this like tea thing. It's kind of like how you soak chia seeds. You can soak basil seeds and then people swallow them. It's kind of like chia, it's kind of like that. You know what I'm talking about. I think they call it hairy basil, and I don't know from a planting standpoint, when you plant hairy basil, I don't know what kind of basil you're going to get, but it's whatever basil it is, the seeds are edible. So you could do an experiment if you bought the hairy basil from the Chinese grocery store or an Asian grocery store. You could use them how they tell you how to use it, but then you could also plant some of them and see what you get from that. I've also in the past bought just like dry beans and planting them. Now here's the thing: companies are not supposed to sell GMO plants to the consumer, except for like there's one company that can sell this purple tomato. That's a GMO. That's the only one I've heard of that is GMO that's being sold to a regular home gardener. So the problem is that you can buy beans or, dry corn or dry whatever, and that could be GMO. And if they're selling it to you to eat it, they're not selling it to you to plant it. And so if you planted it, you could be accidentally planting GMO. So you want to look for a symbol like that, GMO free, on whatever you get from the grocery store anyways, but also if you did want to plant that material, you'd want it not to be GMO. And so then you can still use those hacks, but not, you know, contaminate the genetics. Next up, we have what's called Imperial Rocket Larkspur. Isn't that lovely? So pretty. Looks like lots of different colors, which is nice. Focus. These are annuals. Delphinium consolida. Sow them outside in spring, and these are annuals. 24 inches tall, so I'd probably put these kind of towards the front of my garden, but then I would do like a shorter ground cover in front of that even. So there'll be blue, pink, white, and purple. That would be kind of fun to have these maybe for next year, where I plant them and then plant my pink and blue bachelor buttons in front of them. I wonder if I can kind of go for like a red, white, and blue-ish kind of look. If I time it right, maybe next year for 4th of July, that would be kind of fun. So they bloom in blue, pink, white, and purple. They're colorful, very easy, and they are annual. So if you have a space that you're like, you don't want to have a big commitment to it, maybe you're renting, annuals are great for renters. Or if you have long-term plans, but you're not quite sure what you're going to do in a certain space, planting annuals kind of gives you something to fill up an area, but isn't a long-term commitment, you know. So that is good to know. And it's easy. So this would be good for beginners. You do want to water them regularly, but don't saturate them too much. You're not going to want it to get root rot, right? It says it tolerates clay soils, which root rot and clay soils usually go hand in hand, but it does say that it tolerates sandy or clay soils, so that's kind of interesting. It should bloom in the first season if they're started early, but if not, then this following summer is when they will go, which is handy. Okay, so if you plant them late, you know what, maybe do a pinch, plant them anytime, summer, whatever, and see what happens. Why not? It says it will self-seed. Lovely. It says it's an annual, but then it says to prune it for new growth and then self-seeds, cut plant several inches above ground level after the first hard frost. That's strange. That's the kind of thing you would do for a perennial. So, you know what, maybe try that and just see if it comes back. I don't know. Because why would you... I wonder why they would do that. Maybe unless they hadn't flowered yet. So if it hasn't flowered yet, maybe cut it down like that. I don't know. I'll have to do some experimenting. And I've got plenty of seeds in here. There's a lot of seeds. Great germination rates. 90% germination rates. 99% pure. It was tested in November. Which in Washington State would mean that you could say this is good till November 2026. But they're saying March 2027. Which is fair because then at least I have... You know, honestly, I'm going to not plant all of these in one year. There's no way. But I will plant them in early spring. Maybe do some transplanting outside if I need to. But these are the Imperial Rocket Larkspur. I think this would look pretty with some of the pink and blue bachelor buttons as well. That would be cool. So I bought some more broadleaf sage because, you know, it's honestly a really good deal. You get a lot of seeds in here. This is an ounce of seed, so it's a lot of seed, you guys. Salvia officinalis, and I grow this kind of sage in my backyard. I have oh my gosh, it's crazy now. It's like 3 feet tall, huge, and I am propagating it from cuttings. But I bought a lot of seeds because I love sage, and it is very aromatic. I like it for like aromatherapy. I just like to touch the leaves and smell my hands as I go through the garden. It's just really beautiful. The flowers also are great for pollinators. They just love it. So if you ever look at there's a ornamental salvia, or several ornamental salvias that people grow just for the flowers. But the culinary and medicinal salvias, they also have beautiful flowers. So don't ignore the edible, useful things because their flowers are just as pretty and just as beloved. And I don't see anything bothering them. Sometimes I'll see ladybugs, and I'll see like bees and hoverflies on the flowers. I do not see munching on the leaves. They make a really nice ornamental, you guys. I'm telling you, 180 days, that is to be able to start harvesting. But the reality is you can take a few leaves before then, and you will have this for a very, very long time. I can't remember how long ago I planted my first sage, but it's been going a very long time, and I planted it from seeds from the Dollar Tree. So when you see the Dollar Tree sage, you don't get very many seeds for that much, and it's like 2 packets for $1.50 something or something like that. It's similar. I don't know exactly how much it is now, but it's like 2 or 3 seed packets for like $1.75 or something like that. So very, very easy to do this. It does grow like a shrub. It grows like a bush. Beautiful, smells great. You can start them indoors. I didn't start mine indoors. I actually started them outside, but in a clear container with a lid on it. And it was very warm when I was starting it, so that kind of worked for me. But if you want to babysit it, you can just plant them. What I like to do is I like to plant them in a little plastic container. The to-go containers, I'm telling you guys, to-go containers from places are the best deal. I'll purposely sometimes just save a little bit of food. And I'm like, oh, can I get a box for this? If I know that they give out those plastic containers like at Denny's or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. And they have the little clear tops. You get them for free in that way. So you will have it on the heat mat for 2 or 3 weeks. It doesn't have to have the heat mat as long as it's at about 70 degrees. My heat mat is warmer than 70, and it's beautiful. It works so well. Or you could just have it, again, that's my wound vac going, that blah, 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 sound is the wound vac, and I can prove it. This is the wound vac, okay? It is hooked to my ankle, and it is pulling on it to encourage healing. So that sound, every once in a while, it's like releasing the air pressure. So that is that. It is not my stomach, although that could happen sometimes. Anyway, just kidding. So we have the broadleaf sage. Love it. They are so easy, you guys. I can't even tell you. And 83% germination is very good. By the way, there are different documents online that you can look up, just like required germination rates to sell seeds, and it will give you a list, but it doesn't usually include, it usually includes like certain like grasses or wheats. It might include some very typical things like broccoli. It doesn't always have all the herbs, but if you're getting a germination rate over 70%, it's probably legal. And if it's over 80%, it's very, very good. So, and also, again, it's saying it grows within 2 or 3 weeks. You could literally have that other 17% grow, but maybe in 2 months. So don't think that if it says 83 germination rate that you might actually get a lot more than that. It's just that they run the seed tests based on what's typical. And some of the seeds are going to sprout earlier and some are going to sprout later. That's how it goes. So this is a great deal. There's a lot of seeds in here. Buying 1 packet of seeds like this, it's going to be more expensive because it's a lot of seeds. But if you like to give away herbs as gifts, fabulous, you guys. And my mom one time was like, she wanted to make a stuffing for Thanksgiving. And she's like, can you please pick me some of your sage? And it really made so delicious. So it works really well in stuffings for Thanksgiving. So sage is great. I had never heard of these before. These are called prairie pussy toes, and they are so cute. They look like tiny thistle, which, by the way, the globe thistle now is apparently illegal to buy or sell in my state. So if you try to buy that, you might want to look into it. But look how cute that is. They're itty bitty. They look like little paws, like the little paw pads of a kitten. So I don't know if they're soft like that, but you know, this is new to me, you guys. That's one of the things I like about Everwilde is that they have so much on there and they have a lot of natives. So this is perennial and Tenaria neglecta. Antennaria neglecta. It sounds like antennas that you don't have to take care of. 8 weeks being cold and wet, falso. So you know what? If it's native, my preferred method, if it's native and you have either or, you can plant it in your fridge or you can plant it directly outside in the fall. You guys, lazy gardening, that's the way to go. Very natural. They're supposed to be planted outside anyway, right? So full sun and not very deep. It says 0 inches deep, which sounds like something that needs light to germinate. It says this unique native grows as a ground cover throughout much of the Midwest and Northeast. The tiny white flowers look like a cat's paws or pussy toes. Prairie pussy toes is a great deer and rabbit deterrent, so best if planted outside in fall or very early spring. If cold is past, place seeds in moist sand for 8 weeks at 40 degrees Fahrenheit to break dormancy. That's called cold esterification. In wheat, it's called vernalization. If cold is past, do that. Seeds need light to germinate. Sow on the soil surface at 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Keep moist, slow to germinate. This plant tolerates heat and drought, thriving in rocky soils, but not in moist, rich soil. It will not tolerate competition and must be kept weed-free until established. Mature plants spread quickly by roots and reseeding. I like that, especially with something that's kind of native. So that again, it says it's from like the Northeast and Midwest. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so it's not really native here, apparently, but it's native to North America. Mature plants will spread quick. The leaves act as a ground cover with flowers growing 6 to 12 inches tall. So that will work really well, like I said. Like I like to do like staggered, like tallest things in the back and then a little bit shorter and go down so that you can see all those things. Now, when things like self-seed, it kind of goes everywhere, but at least you get to see some of it if you do it that way. And then it says they bloom from April to June and cover with mulch for the winter. So that will help them to come back for sure. Oh, by the way, talking about mulch. So I called one of my local coffee shops where I used to buy burlap, and I bought burlap for a couple of reasons. One, I would use the burlap. I'd take like a ugly pot and I'd put it inside the burlap bag, and then I'd just take the burlap bag and tuck it in and put the plants inside of it, soil and plant and stuff. And that to me was a dupe for using whiskey barrels. I love planting in whiskey barrels, and that even if it's not a real one, they look really cool. But by the way, whiskey barrels do break down. I planted an apple tree in a whiskey barrel, and I am regretting it because the whiskey berry eventually does degrade. And so now I'm trying to figure out what to do with the tree. But I diverge. Anyway, so with the coffee bags, I took the coffee bag and I put the pot inside, tucked it in, and then planted inside of it. And it looked really cool. They last for like maybe 2 years. 1 year for sure looks really great, and it used to be $1. I called them up, and I actually used to get the coffee grounds, like the used up coffee grounds, for free. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I can get the coffee grounds for free and pay $1 or a couple dollars for the bean bags. Bean bags, not bean bags, but you know what I mean, coffee bean bags. So I called them up and they said it's all free now. But they don't do the coffee grounds. Now they just do the chaff. So I got a big bag of chaff I can use around my plants. 1, to mulch around them and keep them warm in the wintertime so they don't freeze. 2, to keep them moist in the summertime. So it covers the soil. When you water, it gets like, it settles down. It'll go, it'll squish down because right now it's puffy. And then it will help to keep the water from evaporating too quickly. It also keeps the soil fertility high because the microbial life and earthworms, they will go up to soil surface and down way more when the soil is not all dried out. So you keeping it a little bit moist means more worms. It means more natural vermicompost that's happening in your potted plants if you're using pots. And it just works really well. So I got some free mulch, you guys. I'm so happy. So I love that kind of stuff. Another thing I thought about is sometimes I'll be driving around and I'll see like just leaves all over the sidewalks or something. And it's occurred to me before, I could park safely off to the side in a park or something and walk over with a broom and dustpan and get up all that good leaf material. The city has to pay people to come in to grab that stuff. And I know that it would be doing a service, maybe pick up some trash while I'm doing it. And then I'll have some more mulch that I could use. So, and I also save all the mulch from my like cherry trees and stuff like that. The leaves fall down and I just let things until it gets crazy. I just leave things to decompose in place. But if it gets crazy, I rake it up and I put it in the bottom of a pot, or I sprinkle it around the inside of a pot to let it decompose on the surface. And that will feed your microbes. Then you won't have things like the pill bugs, the little roly-polies. Roly-polies and pill bugs, they will actually eventually eat living plants if they don't have enough breaking down in the soil. So if you're constantly keeping things weed-free and you're taking away all the leaf mold and all that kind of stuff, then you are starving them into eating your plants. So I like to do a little chop and drop. If I have dead leaves, I take the dead leaves off. I drop them down to the soil. Sometimes I'll even take a piece of banana peel and just like stick it in the soil and cover it up. And that way I'm feeding those decomposers. And then they aren't going to get desperate and go for the plants. These are natives. They, for the continent. Now, they might not grow naturally here, but they're perennial, which means I'm going to get a good amount of time out of them. Also, they flower in year 2. So if you don't see these pretty flowers in the first year, just be patient, and you will in all good time. Time to have a little sip of my coffee. It tastes even better because it was made with love from my little boy. Here we have our wild Columbine. It looks a little bit different, doesn't it? Than from the other variety. Remember, these are the other varieties that I got in this seed haul. The McKana Giants Columbine, which are a little bit more expensive, smaller packet. This is the Dwarf Columbine that I got. A little bit thicker packet, lots of seeds in here. And these are the ones that are called Wild Columbine. They do have that nodding look to them, which on these, it doesn't really do them justice. But with the Columbines I have already that I got from a churchyard sale, and the ones I got from my seed plant swaps, they have that nodding effect too, where they just kind of, the flowers are so heavy and they just go twink, and they just kind of droop. It's beautiful. So this Wild Columbine definitely has that effect. And it has these long, I forget what these are called. If you remember what these are called, it's like a sepal. That's probably not the right word for it. Calyx. Is that a calyx or a sepal? Okay, but it's the top part of the flower. It's like the base of the flower, and it looks like these like almost like tubular shaped, like a vase or like an upside down conch, like that. Okay, and then you can see the stamen protruding downward. That's very lovely. This look here looks a little bit like the fava bean plant, but then with a long, thick, very strong looking stem. So you've got this Wild Columbine. It's very pretty. That red-yellow contrast, or kind of orange, dark orange, red, and yellow. It's very pretty. Aquilegia canadensis. It's a perennial, as are the others. The other Columbine. Part sun. So I make a lot of areas that could be considered part sun, because you might have different height of other flowers and perennials that could create some protection from direct sun. I have some Columbine, like I mentioned earlier. I would say it's almost full shade, maybe a little bit of dappled light coming through, and they still flower and look so pretty. It says especially attracted to hummingbirds, which makes sense because this shape is perfect for hummingbirds. By the way, if you ever see a flower that has that shape and it has like a hole in the end, what that is from a bee, because the bees are too fat to get through into these tubes. So if they want to get the nectar, they will bite a little hole and then they can get to the nectar. Okay, so let's get back to the wild columbine. And by the way, this video is really long and hopefully you're enjoying it. Maybe you paused it and came back to it later. I certainly did. This is actually like probably 20 videos already. Just kind of put them together, but this is one seed order, just a lot of seeds. So they are attractive to hummingbirds. Like I said, if you ever see a little tiny hole in the end, but not on all of them, but like maybe a hole on a couple of them, it's because the bees got desperate and they wanted that nectar. They'll do that to any kind of flower that has a long tube if there aren't a lot of other easier targets. Food resources. Sounds a little bit better, right? So this is a wildflower cape. So it has red and yellow blossoms. Can do better with a little bit of shelter and shade. If you plant them in a pot, what's nice about that is you can move them, right? That's one of the perks of growing in containers is if a plant is not happy where it is, you can move it to someplace where it's happier. But everyone's always looking for, in Washington especially, where can you plant something kind of in shade? And there's different levels of shade, semi-shade or like deep shade or dappled shade. So it says you're going to want to cold stratify them. So the easiest thing would be to plant them in the fall or early spring. So I can plant some of these in the fall. I've already missed the spring. I could plant some in the refrigerator, but like I said, I'm kind of taking it easy and giving myself a little bit of grace because of my injury. And since they're in Mylar, I'm not that as stressed about getting them planted as quickly. So hot, humid weather may cause wilting. It prefers cool weather. It can survive light frosts. Flowers planted from seed will bloom in the second year. After blooming, the foliage will die off. Okay, so when it says by seed, so they can also like grow, like I don't want to say through divisions, but you can, after a couple years, divide your columbine and get more plants that way. And those tend to flower faster than from seed because the seeds, it's going to require a lot of energy to get as big as they're going to get, right? Whereas when they're growing from itself, asexually, it's drawing energy from the main plant, so it's getting extra boosts of energy. So from seed, it has to do that all by itself, and it will be tinier for a while, and it looks like a little fairy garden, so cute and itty bitty. But you know what? What do we have? We've got time, and if you're planting lots of stuff like I am, you know, those little surprises, by the time they actually bloom, you forgot about them, and then you're like, oh, I remember you, right? It's like a visitor, like an old friend that you lost contact with suddenly sends you a postcard, you know, or shows up and says, hey, you want to go get a cup of coffee? And then I say, why, certainly, I'd love to go get a cup of coffee with an old friend. Let's do that. Cheers. Yes, so growing perennials, especially native type perennials, it's very special is that you will forget about them. Don't mow them over. And then they will pop up and you will be pleasantly surprised year after year. So I'm loving the columbine. And they kind of look a little bit like bleeding hearts. So if you like bleeding hearts, maybe you'll like columbine too, or vice versa. We have just 2 more seed packets. This is the second to last. This is Vera lavender. Vera lavender. It looks like an English lavender, and that's what I grow the most of. I don't really need lavender seeds because I've got so many lavender plants growing. And I have them growing themselves. one of my tricks was, well, after I collected the seeds, I collect the stems with the flowers when they're all dried out, and then I put them upside down in a lunch paper bag, and then I just shake them up, shake it up, and then I collect those, I dump that bag into seed packets, because by that point they are like dry, and I put them into little paper bag seed packets, and I put the information on it. And I often will do that after like the next year. So like basically they dry on the plant, winter happens, and then on like one of the first few hot summer days, I pick all of the spent flowers. Now they have already been cold stratified, which makes it really easy for a person, and I would mark it naturally cold stratified on it so that people would know that they don't have to do that part of it. If any of the seeds fell down, I might get some free volunteers if they're not falling onto concrete. And then the leftover flowers and stems, I didn't want to waste it, and it also helps to I think it helps to repel negative, harmful pests. So I just crumbled up this chaff around my strawberries, and I ended up getting little tiny baby lavenders because I missed a few seeds. And some people just throw away chaff. I don't understand that. Nothing should go to waste in a garden. Everything's usable. If you have dead leaves, you can either like interlay them, do like the lasagna method kind of thing, chop and drop. It's very permaculture-y, be a permy in that way. And with flower chaff, flower and seed chaff, I like to put on the surface because I know some of the seeds are in there still, and I just can't bring myself to causing harm to a living organism. So when I do that, I know some of them will sprout, and they do. And so I don't really need these seeds, but I thought it would be fun we have some stemming happening in another room. Some stemming. If you know what that is, comment below what stemming is. Not plant stemming. Vera lavender is not a type I have, but I do have an English type. What subcategory of that? I don't know. I planted what I planted, and it did very well. I did plant a culinary one from a lavender festival. Of all of my lavenders, it was the only one that didn't do well, ever. Oh, and French lavender doesn't do very well for me either. So I like to do the English types, which is like this. The French type has it's more like almost looks like a comb, and it goes poof, like a little flower on top. And for some reason, even though they're sun-loving, they get burnt. I don't get that. But the English have done fabulous for me always. Very fragrant. Love it. I just go past them. I pet them. I go by and I pet my plants, and then I sniff my fingers, and it's wonderful. And then I rub it in my hair, and no, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking with you, but actually that's not a bad idea. Can you imagine? I bet it would repel mosquitoes. Rub it all over your skin like you would with eucalyptus. Make yourself blend into nature. All right, so it's an herb. You can use it in sachets, potpourris, and perfumes. I really want to get into making my own potpourris. I naturally do that when I'm drying my seed chaff. It makes the whole house smell like lavender. It smells wonderful. And you can make your own tinctures and all sorts of stuff. You can make your own potpourri like sprays. Just spray in the air too. So we'll do that another day. They have beautiful lilac flowers, and the foliage is kind of silvery. It is kind of a grayish green. It says refrigerate seeds for a month before planting. So what I was saying as a hack to be easy on yourself is if you see your lavender going to seed, you can collect them. You can do that. Sure. It doesn't harm anything. You can actually tilt them into a bag, shake them, and get those seeds, but then leave the rest right there on the plant, or take the chaff and put it on the ground, and the chaff that you put around on the ground, some of that is going to contain seeds, and it will grow naturally, and then that helps you skip that stage. Or And you do lose some of your seeds because, you know, who knows what happens to them, how many there were before and how many you actually end up collecting. But if you just collect the seeds after winter has passed and it's a nice hot day, collect those stems, shake them off. Those seeds have already been naturally stratified, skipping the refrigeration step altogether because that's how nature does it anyway. So you can transplant them. You can start them off in small containers and just keep uppotting them. If you put them in the ground, though, they are going to be huge and just really luxurious. Then you can take cuttings and you can take off the lower foliage, stick them in soil, water them, and they can grow roots and give you new plants. I do that with my favorite ones. So whenever I plant from seed, whichever ones are the best, those are the ones I propagate through cuttings because you're cloning your favorites. So that's awesome. There are a lot of seeds here, which means I can do a lot of gifts in the future or whatever I choose to do with them later. I've got one more seed variety. It is called Joe Pie Weed. So this reminds me of when I was a kid. My grandma used to always make me say this saying. It was something I learned in Girl Scouts. It's, "Hi, my name is Joe. I have a wife, 3 kids, and I work in a button factory. One day, my boss came to me. He said, 'Hey, hi, Joe. Are you busy?' I said, 'No.' He said, 'Turn this button with your left hand.' Hi, my name is Joe. I have a wife, 3 kids, and I work in a button factory. One day, my boss came to me. He said, 'Hi, Joe, are you busy?' I said, 'No.' He said, 'Turn this button with your right hand. Hi, my name is Joe.'" And you do this, and then it's your right, left arm, or right arm, left arm, right leg, left leg. It's your head, and then it's your butt, and then it gets really silly, and everybody falls down. It's hilarious. My grandma would always have me do it. And, I mean, I'm not kidding. I started when I was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6. And then she literally, and I think she had me doing that until I was like 30-something. So I, don't do for grandma something cute that you don't plan on doing forever, Joe. So Joe Pie, that's so cute and beautiful flowers there. And so it's a perennial, obviously, because like I said, I'm really in love with perennials. Eupatorium maculatum. Eupatorium maculatum. Bibbidi bobbidi boo. Psh, just kidding. And it grows. So you're going to fall sow or 4 weeks cold and wet. That's actually not very long. That's fine. So this would be an easy one to start. I would probably, during spring break, start it in the fridge. Cold stratify, like I mentioned before, with the plastic container with a little lid, with cocoa core, damp, blah, 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 boom, right? 1 month, you do it during spring break. And then after your last frost, then plant it outside. Perfect. So it is a showy native wildflower, abounds in wetland areas, and is so aromatic that it continually has butterflies hovering around it. Named for an 18th century Native American, this plant was used for curing fevers and other sicknesses. So best if planted outside in fall or early spring. If cold is past, then you can do the cold stratification indoors, right? They need light to germinate, so you're going to sow them on the surface, but keep them moist. So what that means for me, if I'm using a container, that's easy. You just put them on the surface, spritz them, put the lid on, you're good, you're golden. If you're outside, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to remember to keep them moist. But you can take, like, let's say a plastic container and just put it in the soil above it and kind of wriggle it in around the seeds so that it doesn't get pushed away. You can put a rock on top of that, actually. That will hold it in place. And then that will help keep the moisture in. And then when you water it, you can literally water just around it, and the moisture will get down into the soil area. So it's totally fine that way. But that's what I like to do if it's surface sowing. I like to put a container on top. Just a couple inches off the ground is perfect, with a rock on top of that, kind of wedged in a little bit. So I'll put the seeds in the middle. Imagine these are the seeds in here, and this is my container. I put it on top, wedge it in a little bit, put a rock on top of that, and then I would water. Okay, and I would do that on top of moist soil anyway. That's how I would do it. That way you don't lose your little seedlings. Okay, it says here, keep seedlings watered during the first year of development. They may not bloom until their second year of growth. Mature plants can tolerate drought, though they reach their full potential in moist, well-drained soil. And up here it said wetland areas, okay? So, I mentioned before that I am going to be doing some cool stuff on a 5-acre plot that is by a man-made lake. And I think I will plant some of this there. I want some here too, but I'm thinking, wetlands, I want it to be really just this beautiful oasis of this place to kind of escape and go write poetry and take pictures of wildlife and enjoy, nature, make a food forest and so forth. So I think that'll be really beautiful. So like I said, I'm kind of organizing all my stuff by like where I'm planting it and when I'm planting it. But you organize, comment below, how do you organize your seeds? Because I have tried it several ways. When I'm selling seeds, I organize those seed packets alphabetically by type. So it'd be like flowers alphabetically. It'd be like all my squash alphabetically, all my beans alphabetically, all my grains alphabetically. I do flowers and herbs usually together. Flowers and herbs are together. I will have the beans, squash, and like sunflowers, like it's like 3 sisters together. And that's when I'm selling, because I have a lot of seeds. But I also have seeds in like the kind of containers that are for like baseball cards. I get them from Hobby Lobby, and they have a zipper on the side. It's just beautiful. And so I've got like 3 or 4 of those, and I like those for my personal seed stashes because I can flip through and find stuff really easily. And you can read the back of them. So like on one side you see the front cover, and on the back side you can see all the planting instructions. It's just the kind of how I started evolving over time, how I organize. I used to use those plastic containers from like Michael's that have individual little tubs, and that worked when I only had like 20 or 40 different varieties of seeds, but now I have thousands of types of seeds. So I'm trying to up my game on how to keep it organized so I can find stuff, not just find what I want, but like when I need to plant it. Because sometimes I go to pull a plant, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to plant this now. Oh, it needs to be called stratified. Whoopsies. So how are you doing that? I'm actually building a spreadsheet of all the plants that I am growing, or, and then I'm putting down all the information. When I get monetized, I will be sharing that with people who are like not just following but subscribing to I'm gonna have to do some kind of monetized level at some point, because it costs me money to have a channel and I'm not making anything yet. Just because of the software and stuff I have to use in order to do my videos and everything. So at some point I do have to have some kind of income from this so I can keep going. Otherwise I'll have like 2 or 3 minute videos and that's all I'll have. Which I guess I could go that route too if I never get monetized. But I'm just always looking for the next level of how to organize my seeds. If you have a seed strategy for sorting your seeds and you have thousands of seeds, comment below, because I have done all of the introductory type organization methods and I have outgrown all of them because there's just so many seeds. I literally have giant Costco sized totes full of seeds, and of course a lot of those are like by pounds, like 5 pounds of orchid beans, or 3 pounds of celery, or things like that. So I just have a lot of seeds, but I also have quite a big collection of seeds from Everwilde, Baker Creek, and migardener, nikitovka, True Leaf, just all different varieties, gifts I've gotten, so forth, Dollar Tree, everything. So I've got all the seeds, and I need a more effective way of organizing them so I can find them when I need them. And one thing I do love about the binders, I might just stick with that, is that I can take a binder, sit on my lap, and kind of flip through it, and it kind of does help me curb the shopping, because I might have a problem, Joe. Anyway, everybody, God bless you. Be good, be sweet, grow a garden if you want to eat, and I will see you next time. One of my next videos is going to be a Baker Creek seed haul. It's a small seed haul, but it is a seed haul nonetheless. Comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you again soon. Ciao!